welcome back to another Nextlander podcast. I'm Vinny Caravella, joined by intrepid explorer Brad Shoemaker.
Who's it going to be? Just waiting to see who decided to introduce first. Hello, hi.
Hi, welcome back.
I'm from space.
Traveling the galaxies, all the spaces.
True. Yes, I opened a menu and I highlighted the icon for San Francisco and I held X. 3 seconds later, I was there. It was weird. No travel time at all.
Alex, you tried to fast travel from New York to New Jersey, but they said you were over-encumbered, and you can't fast travel when you're over-encumbered.
The problem is I gotta get that easy pass. That's the thing that lets you travel when you're encumbered, unfortunately.
Or you gotta shed some boxes. You just gotta...
No, the boxes are coming, man. I don't drop boxes.
Drop boxes. Got it.
I don't care how much oxygen I'm losing. I am keeping these fucking guns.
How much CO2 you are developing.
Hey, oxygen, it's the new stamina.
Yeah.
We're making a bunch of Starfield references. Should we just jump into it?
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have a lot of preamble here. This is kind of what we've been doing over the last week or so.
This is all I have played. I'm just about 24 hours into it now. I don't know about you guys.
So
I'm like 8-ish, 8 or 9.
Okay.
I think I'm about 15-ish.
Okay.
So I could double check at some point, but I will say, we've held this podcast for the embargo. If you're listening to this when it comes up, it's Thursday. We're going to go into it. I don't think there's going to be a lot of story spoilers here because I don't think any of us have a lot to say to spoil the story. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's too much that they haven't shown that we're going to get into narrative-wise. That being said, we're obviously going to talk about the game as much as we can. So, spoiler warning here. I'll put it in the notes as well that there could be some minor spoilers if you're looking to go in extremely fresh. If you want to hear our opinions, spoilers.
They could happen.
I'll put it this way. Like I said, I'm about 23-ish hours in. I think I'm only on the 3rd story quest still. Just to give you some context for how little of late game story we have to talk about.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about the setup stuff. Let's just get it out of the way right now. The setup in this game is, and I think this is what they've showed, you find an artifact, you touch it, you have kind of a Mass Effect-like vision, and then you're on your mission to go collect the rest of the artifacts. That's the kind of
That's the short version of it.
You get mixed up with Constellation, which is a kind of, not a secret society, everybody seems to know about them, but they are like well-funded.
Not well-staffed.
They seem like, it seems like, I don't know, Constellation, especially looking at the lodge, their base.
Yeah.
Their like fancy mahogany library base. Like Constellation sort of seems like a pursuit for the idle wealthy.
Totally. It's got like a Livingston style, like old school, bunch of people with monocles and elephant guns sitting around.
Oh yeah. There would totally be like, were it not totally uncouth, there would totally be a guy sitting there in a pith helmet.
Yes, right. Yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's got that vibe of like not an Elks Club, but like a old style club for people who like to do safari.
Yeah, I'm sure those were the inspirations, like that era of kind of rich people exploring. Granted, there's only one actual rich guy there who funds everything, but still. I just mean it more has the vibe of like the kind of thing that you only can do when you have a lot of money.
Yeah.
But they seem well-intentioned. They seem about exploring and xenobiology and like
totally
stuff like that.
So far, yeah.
It's in their version of it, they seem to have assembled a kind of think tank almost of minds, people with specific skills, different areas of expertise to come along.
But yeah, that's fair. Like one guy is a former pirate, so they're not all a bunch of like hoity-toity societal elites or whatever.
They're funded by like an industry magnate who like made a ton of money. So that's
nothing to say about your character, who also comes from, let's just say, fairly meager origins. Though I mean, you do have some room in terms of like how you want your character's backstory to be. But the start of the game is you're just working on some shitty mining colony, digging up rocks. Yeah, you're a Dusty.
You're a Dusty.
Yeah,
I like Supervisor Lynn.
She's all right. I wish there was maybe more of her.
There's plenty more. Yeah, there's plenty more.
Throw her on the ship. Yep.
She joins your crew. So you got plenty more of her calling you Dusty.
Though,
if you want,
I can't seem to get her to take a damn shower. And Supervisor Lynn is constantly
how
just
she rolls,
dirty.
man.
straight out the mines and doesn't seem to care.
So who are your characters? What is your background? What did you make?
I picked, let's see, I picked Homesteader as the background, which I just went for because of the starting skills, basically.
What does that get you? So we should say you get 3, you can pick 3 traits, all right, for your...
So, yeah, you pick a background, which is mandatory, and then you can pick 3 optional traits, but you don't have to take any of those.
Don't have
they all,
right.
They're kind of all, they all have pros and cons, or they all are a trade-off, basically.
Anyone else take the dream house besides me?
No, I thought about that one.
Okay.
The traits I took are, I took Adoring Fan.
Okay.
Which is a trip. I took Parents.
The only downside of Adoring Fan is that the guy might annoy you, right? He'll like pop up and...
He's pretty annoying, honestly. But also, he's just a member of your crew, so I just unassigned him from my ship.
Okay. And
I haven't seen him in a while, but I mainly picked it because it said, like, yeah, he's annoying, but at least he'll bring you gifts. And I was like, well, more items is better, so give me that. I took Parents, which is, the description is basically, your parents are still alive and you can go visit them, but you have to send home 2% of your money every month or every week.
Right.
But now I can go hang out with my parents whenever I want. And they gave me Grandma's power armor recently.
Oh,
okay.
which is the best armor I've found in the game so far, so I guess that money paid off.
Okay.
And then I took one of the religious ones, which is basically just like, hey, there's a chest full of items at the church you can go get, which was useless.
Okay. Do you worship at the Church of the Giant Snake?
No, you can't.
Yes, that is an option.
I don't know.
Can you join that one?
I don't know.
You can join that one.
Okay, so that's like good to hear. Maybe we'll get into it more. Like, there's not like a ton of variation in the main story. I guess all their Bethesda games are like this. Like, there's not a ton of choice to be made in like the main story quests. But hearing you can align yourself with the insane space cultists.
Well, that was one of the traits, was that you can say you were raised by the people in the house of whatever the fuck, whatever.
The House of Varun.
House of Varun, yeah.
Okay,
back in the day, they were just another snake cult, but now look at them.
Yes, raised by, okay, so maybe that sounds like raised by, but maybe escaped, so maybe that's not as aligned with the evil space cultists as I thought, but anyway.
So, Alex,
what kind of characters do you guys have?
So I took the Dream House, which is funny because... They give you a house. It's on one of the kind of like edge of the star system you start in, like planets, and you go there. And basically, there are 2 things you have to do. You have to pay off the mortgage, and if you don't make
damn mortgage,
that's right.
They give you a mortgage.
Yes, that's part of the. I remember that's part of the description. It's like you get a dream house, but it has bad news. It has a mortgage. It has to be paid weekly.
It's like 125,000 credits total or something. So, and I was like, well, I'm a new homeowner, so I should do that. And so you have to pay that off, and if you don't pay it on time, they won't take the house from you, but they won't let you in until you make the next payment.
Okay. All right.
And when you go there for the first time, it's basically totally empty. So I think you can kind of kit it out over time.
Okay.
I forget kind of, there was one I know I got that was like, you were raised in traits, though I can't remember exactly which one it was. I think it might have been the United Colonies, like you were raised in the United Colonies. You have some affinity for them. And I forget what the third trait was. It wasn't anything that interesting, but my character is Graham O'Dope. Graham O'Dope. He's a space Hesher Canadian.
Okay.
Third generation immigrant in Canada, originally Irish. His grandparents are Irish, but let's just say raised in Kitchener. Lived in Brampton for a while, moved on to the stars. All he really likes doing is, drinking some Molson and, doing some hard work. Also, he's a space trucker.
I had to ask. Surely you picked space trucker for this.
Of course I did. What else would I do?
I don't remember what background I picked for my character, though. Maybe it was military. Was there a military one?
There is a military option.
There's a bunch of different kind of violence-oriented ones because there's like bounty hunter.
Well, is that a background or is that a trait?
That's a background.
That's the one I picked then.
There's like a kind of cyber runner one, I think.
Oh, that's right. I think I picked bounty hunter, bounty hunter. Oh, I did not pick Ronin.
Ronin is one.
I picked bounty hunter, and then I have a bounty on my head as the trait, which I think gets you like extra damage when you're low on health, but also occasionally people will come to collect that bounty.
See,
which I did have. I don't know if this happened to everybody. I did have two freaking gigantic ships pull up, and we're here for the bounty. And it was,
so far, that has not happened to me because I don't have any bounties.
Yeah, me either. Or it did happen to me once, but for a different reason because of something I had done, which was kind of cool.
So I'll say this weird story breaking thing is they never say I have a bounty on me when I go to the UN.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's like, oh no, you're clear, you have no bounties on you. But this thing, maybe it's because it's like a black market bounty. I don't know. Like I don't have to clear any bounties.
It's not an official one.
I've run into similar stuff. You get scanned for contraband every time you enter like civilized orbit of a civilized planet. And I have a quest right now that requires me to fly around with some contraband. And I was like, well, fuck, do I have to go do this quest immediately? And can I just not go anywhere now? But then at the end of the quest giver dialogue, they were like, oh, by the way, we registered that contraband with the militia. Like, you're fine.
They're not going to just pick it up?
Again, they just kind of write their way out of their own rules when it's convenient.
So that's kind of the setup there. Like the three traits you can pick all have negative effects, but they all have something kind of positive. It's very
except for the religious ones, as far as I could tell. Like those were the only ones. The only downside was you can only take one of them. You can't do two religions at the same time. But those don't have some like money drain or somebody showing up to kill you, at least yet.
And then you kind of, it sounds like we all got funneled into the starting story, which was the mining. You're on some rock mining for a contract, find the artifact, have a vision, very Star Child-like vision, 2001-ish thing, and then you pass out, and then immediately the kind of mining installation's under attack, and there's a guy there from Constellation who is there to collect both the artifact, and then is like, hey, you had this vision? Guess what? You can come join us. And it's all pretty fast at that point, going from touching the artifact to being in Constellation.
I was wondering, I mean, like Bethesda games have a certain, I don't want to say formula to them at the beginning, but there's always, there's a self-contained tutorial-ish thing, and then you open a big door, right?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Always the walk out of a cave or open a big vault door, and there's the entire game in front of you. They get to that like big open a door thing in like 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's not long.
And then you have your own ship about 10 minutes after that.
They do not waste time. Also, the open the door thing is very funny. Like, I will give it to him. At first, I sighed, and then I was like, all right, look, it's not a vault, but it's basically a vault door.
Yeah, it is. Although it's funny, though, because like it really illustrates what's different about this game, because that big, grand opening the door to go outside moment opens onto a tiny, tiny little map with
totally.
like 3 buildings on it, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then you have to get in the ship and fly away. Like, that's you're looking at nothing in terms of the scope of the game.
No.
When you go out there, and like, that's kind of the big thing that's stuck with me that's different so far is how compartmentalized everything is in this game. Actually, let me step back for a second.
Yeah.
They made one of those games. Like,
yes,
we should be very clear. Like, I assume nobody listening to this was really expecting otherwise, but like, they have not remade their formula. Like, if you've played Fallout 3 and 4, Skyrim, et cetera, like, the way the NPCs animate, the types of, like, scripting and pathing bugs you might see, the encumbrance stuff, the dialogue tree option type, you know what I mean? Like, the zoom in on
the way
everything.
Every character
like,
stares you dead in the fucking eye when they're talking to you in a cutscene.
Yeah. Like, it is that. Like, they did that again, and like, that's fine. I wasn't expecting anything different, but obviously it's the space exploration stuff that differentiates this. So yeah, like, it feels very compartmentalized. Like, that's the thing. After a few hours of playing it, I was kind of surprised. Like, I didn't know how connected everything was going to be. Like, do you go get in your ship and just like hit thrusters and manually fly out into space and set paths and stuff? But it's extremely like fast travel oriented, and everywhere you go feels like a self-contained map. Even though you might be on a big open planet, it still feels like a localized area that I've seen based off of leaks. I've seen people saying you actually can't leave like boundaries of the landing locations. You can't walk across an entire planet if you want. Not that you would want to.
It was funny. Right before this, I was kind of trying to see how far I could walk. I could walk a decent ways. Because there is planet exploration, and you can land like in the wilderness for stuff like that. But
like, one of the early things is that you have to go do something near Earth's moon, and the lady's like, well, you know, if you want to go hang out on the moon for a bit, you can go do that. There's no objective there. So I did that. I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to go bounce around on the moon for a minute. And they let you go a decent ways around the moon before it kind of says, hey, get back on your ship. But like, yeah, I don't know. Like, it seems like there's a decent amount of exploration and freedom, though. Again, it is compartmentalized in a way that is not like, it's not No Man's Sky pole to pole type stuff.
Yeah. So the way it works, and the two things to know are there's no flight and atmosphere. There's no like you can't fly down onto a planet and then fly around the planet.
Right.
Like manual flying is only in space. If you go down to a planet, your ship is stuck to the ground.
Yeah, you're loading into a landing spot.
Yes. The other thing to know is they basically auto-generate a landing spot so you can pick any planet you can pick any point on a planet surface you want to land on.
Mostly, some are restricted, but yes, generally yes.
Generally, like you know, you can cover 99% of a planet, but they seem to be basically sort of auto-generating a smaller map when you land there, and they're going to put like points of interest scattered around like a Bethesda game would, where you've got. It's not a compass, it's your little hand scanner, so they kind of pop up in your view, but it's like, there's a cave 900 clicks that way, and a
abandoned
outpost 500 clicks the other way, and they just seem to generate a map and pepper those randomly around when you land, so you can go down there and explore what they have auto-generated, but there's no I'm going to land on one point of this planet and fly or walk all the way around to the other side of it.
Which is interesting, because the point I'm at now... Because you talked about contraband, so I'll say I just happened to pick up some contraband this morning from a place. My first contraband I ever picked up, and I entered a planet, a solar system, where they scanned you. And as soon as they started scanning me, we'll get into some of these other systems in just a second, but it said, hey, 0% chance to evade the scan. So I was like, crap. So I immediately, they're like, hold still, you're scanning. I immediately opened the fast travel menu, picked the planet, and tried to land at the main port, and it said, no, you can't do this until you've been scanned. And I immediately picked another point on the planet that was like civilian outpost, and was like, okay, and landed there, was hoping that I could walk to the place I need to go. It sounds like I probably won't. The other thing is the civilians wouldn't buy my contraband. I was hoping to just sell it, because the contraband's worth a lot of money. It's like 15,000 credits for this piece of contraband I have. I was like, great, maybe this guy knows it's contraband and won't buy it, but it didn't come up in the dialogue. It just didn't come up for selling.
Well, the trade authority is like very openly a bunch of crooks, so yes. I'm pretty sure they will be just fine buying whatever you've got. And
I did find a trade authority kiosk on some floating space stations that don't seem to scan you. So this game, we could take another step back, because it's probably a good point to say this game has a lot of systems in it, and also seems to have, while it might have a lot going on in it, I don't know about the depth of some of it yet. Because I'm still, for the amount seems like you can do in it, I can't say, because again, I'm only like 12-ish hours in, 12 plus hours in, like how deep they all go. I've done a lot of different things that have gotten me different tiers of loot from doing them. Like, hey, I just stumbled upon this base. I'm going to go inside, and there are some space pirates in there. Or what's the organized, the one that Barrett hates, the group that is harassing Barrett the entire time?
There's Crimson Fleet, or the kind of Fleet, kind of loosely organized pirates.
Yes.
There's also the Spacers.
That seems like a loose...
Spacers, I think, are just sort of generic criminals that operate on their own, and Crimson Fleet is like kind of loosely a military, but they're pirates.
And then there's the snake cult people.
Yeah, House of Rune are the insane, like, the serpent will swallow you all, we're going to murder you type people. So I think that's most of the villainous factions that I've seen.
I mean, I assume at some point you could probably be in bad status with the military, the official like post-Earth military.
The friendly, just since we're rattling them off, the friendly factions are the United Colonies, which is like the remnants of Earth. Earth is uninhabitable.
Yeah.
So they have colonized primarily Alpha Centauri, but also some other places. So UC is the like buttoned up, militarized, kind of high society faction. Freestar Collective is a bunch of Wild West space libertarians,
right?
In literal cowboy hats, with literal like sheriff star badges on their jackets.
Who still want to scan me for contraband, though.
Yeah, well, Yes, that actually, now that you mention it, that seems very at odds with their ideology, but anyway.
So, and
I think that's it. Are there other
That's what I've encountered so far.
That's all I've encountered so far.
Those are the only main two good guys, like the friendly factions I've seen.
So the systems they have in place, I'm trying to think of things that are just slightly different than, or that I haven't encountered in other Bethesda, Fallout, Skyrim style stuff. This seems new, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong. There seems to be a kind of dice roll persuasion system going on for checks, for basically, it sounds like persuasion checks when you're dealing with certain characters, negotiating, trying to convince people. I don't think I fully understand what's happening behind the scenes quite yet, though I have dumped some points into my upgrade tree for it already to be like, hey, you got a 20% better chance of passing these. But seems to be, say we're talking to Brad, and it's going to put me into this kind of persuasion dialogue tree thing, right? Like, hey, you have a thing this person doesn't want to do, see if you can persuade them. They'll give me 4 options, let's say, for example. One will say +1 next to it, one will say +2, one will say +5. In total, I have to have a +6 to persuade Brad. So it seems like getting the +1 has an easier chance. Getting the +5 has a significantly less chance of happening. And again, within 3 strikes you're out rules, it feels like I need to get a +6.
Yeah, you have four chances to respond, right?
Is there always 4, or is it just
the ones I've done has always been like 4 pips on the timeline? So I think you just have to successfully get +6 within 4 chances.
And if you get a +1, or if you get a positive, it doesn't take away a chance. So you can kind of keep rolling, or it seems like you can keep rolling with that. I think, I don't know, I fully don't understand it yet. I have because I don't know they don't give you like, hey, you have a 3% chance of getting this thing.
Yeah, so I think most of the systems I'm trying to think through that I've seen tutorials for are like easy enough to get your head around, but Persuasion I think is the most obtuse one, where they give you like one little pop-up the first time you do it that barely explains it, and then you're just kind of like left fumbling. I just Googled, grain of salt, this is like 30 seconds of research. I think Fallout 4 did have Persuasion.
It did? Okay.
But
I didn't play a ton of it.
I also fell off after like 12, 15 hours of Fallout 4. It looks like in that game, it was based on like your charisma stat and some other stuff like that it was checking against. Okay. But that actually makes me realize this game does not have stat allocation. Like, this doesn't do special the way that Fallout does. It's entirely skill-based as far as I can tell. Like, the skill tree, you get a skill point every time you level up, and there are a bajillion skills. I mean, like,
oh my gosh.
I think it's 5 categories of skills.
Yeah, like 5 trees, basically.
I think it's 5 categories, 4 rows per category, and 4 to 5 skills per row, and each skill has 4 levels.
Yes.
Yeah, so tiers within it.
Shitload of stuff to unlock with skill points, but that's the entirety of... And there is a persuasion skill. There is straight up...
Yeah, I've dropped a point into it.
Yeah, and that one is just literally every tier of it is just an extra 10% chance to pass persuasion checks.
So the interesting thing with that is we're talking about some of the mechanics here. So it's got, this is kind of old school Bethesda, or I don't know when they stopped doing this, but say you drop a point into ballistic guns, right? Your ballistic guns. To unlock the next tier, it'll be like, hey, you've got to kill 20 people with a ballistic weapon to unlock the ability to do the next tier within that thing. So same thing happens with like the jetpack, right? So it's like, hey, you drop a point into your jetpack, you want to get 20% more fuel efficiency, you've got to use the jetpack 20 times. So you wind up in the kind of Morrowind style, I'm just going to jump, I'm just going to get out of this menu and just jump 20 times, and then go back into this menu and drop, or, the points don't come that quickly, at least for me yet. Like, I've maybe dropped in 4 or 5 points at this point in 12-ish hours.
That's about how many I feel like I've done in less than that.
Yeah, okay. I'm level 15 at where I'm at.
Okay.
And it's 1 point per level, so.
Okay. I think I'm only like level 8 or so.
Interesting. Well, if you've been doing a lot of exploring and not a lot of quest completion.
That's kind of been it.
Yeah. I've been scanning a lot.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
been No Man's Skying.
Quests will give you quite a bit of XP.
Okay.
Scanning and like discovering new locations and stuff does not.
No, it's like 20.
Yeah. So I don't know if you get any XP for complete. Sorry, this conversation is gonna be all over the place because there's so goddamn much in this game.
Yeah.
that it's hard to focus on any one thing. It's got No Man's Sky scanning. They've shown that before.
Yeah.
Like each planet has got X number of flora and fauna and resources to scan. I've only completed one planet, the starting moon.
You did the whole thing? You got 100% on it?
Crete, I think, is the name of it. Yes, I did everything to scan on there.
Okay.
All it gets, well, let's see. So you get a thing, you get like a bundle of data that you can sell for a lot of money after you scan a planet.
Okay.
I think it also, planets have traits, and the traits are not known until you have finished scanning everything.
Okay.
But
I've never completed a planet.
Like you'll see it when you go to land on a planet or scan it from orbit or whatever, it'll show like, here's the elements that are here, here's the climate type and other hazards and stuff. And then at the bottom, if it has traits, it'll have little question marks where the traits go.
Oh, I've seen the question marks.
Yeah, but you don't know what those are until you finish scanning everything. And I've only done it once, so I couldn't really tell you what the planetary traits are.
So the scanning is kind of interesting. It feels very No Man's Sky, where if you want to scan a particular thing and put it into your compendium, let's say, for vernacular sake, you have to scan a certain number of those particular items on the planet. So say there are dogs on the planet, you might have to scan 7 dogs to get the full entry. And once you scan one, you can't scan it again, obviously. Or 7 of this tree, so you scan it and then it's like, oh, okay, you're 13% complete, now go scan a few more of them. So that, that feels No Man's Sky-ish, where you're just kind of scanning everything you come across. There is a scanner mode. There are upgrades, of course, for the scanner. You can get a zoom on the scanner. That's one of the last ones I just got as I was scanning everything. And there is an abundance of crap to pick up.
Oh yeah,
it is. Okay, I don't know how much of picking up stuff you guys are doing, but that has been most of my...
I've been doing less of it lately.
It's a lot, and I also am. I go through that with every one of their games, where at first I'm picking up literally everything. I'm like, oh, I got to sell it all. I need money. And then you start realizing what is and is not really worth picking up for either use or sale. The other thing is encumbrance is the biggest problem I've had in this game so far.
Yeah.
It's obnoxious.
Yes.
So
you have to restrict yourself.
So I'll say, let me talk about this for a minute. So they immediately make apparent where that money could go, because unlike other Bethesda games where I'm like, or like Fallout or even Skyrim, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that money, but I want to have it for later. This is immediately apparent because you can buy new ships right out of the gate.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. To their credit, they do not lock all the new ship stuff up at all.
No, you immediately are at a ship vendor within like, I'd say half hour into this game. You can talk to a ship vendor. You can also upgrade your ship parts. The other thing is you can spend money on outposts. You can kind of buy materials to make bases in other on other planets to mine resources and do all sorts of things. You also can spend money on crew to purchase crew. So there's plenty of places to sink your money. I'm not like picking up every coffee cup, but I am trying to pick up weapons, which will get like, a couple $100 here, and spacesuits, which sometimes could be $1,000 or so dollars. While you're looting around, you can throw stuff immediately. Okay. You can take on items. You loot a guy, you take everything. And then from your inventory, you can open up your ship's inventory, and you can send stuff to the cargo hold of your ship. From there, yeah. You can also through another mechanic or talking to a companion, put stuff on them to carry around.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back. Fallout 3, 4, Oblivion, et cetera. This feels like the most companion-focused game they have done.
You've got companions right out of the gate here.
Right out of the gate. Not only do they join your crew, but one is like on you by default. They don't even ask you, like, hey, do you want this character to roll around with you? They are just there until you opt out of it.
Which I was a little confused by at first, being like the distinction between crew and companion, but
that is confusing also. So I'm still on the starting ship because ships are very expensive, and I believe that starting ship says crew capacity 1, right? Am I not?
I think it says 2. Right? I thought it said 2.
2?
Yeah, because I thought it said 2, but I have more people on my ship than that.
Totally. I've had 4 on that tiny ass ship, which I don't know. There's only one cot. I don't know how everybody's. And there's no bathroom that I've noticed either, but.
I had to dock with another ship to use their bed to get some health back because Lynn wouldn't get out of the damn bed.
Right. My guess, I haven't confirmed this because I'm not deep enough in yet, but my guess is crew means how many people you can assign to work systems on the ship.
I think that's correct, yes, because each person has a specialty. Like, I think Vasco, the robot, is like energy weapons and
and some of them have much less combat focused and more like research or mining or ship
outpost management
type skills. Yes, so that's my guess. You can have multiple passengers, but only crew for whatever you have slots for. Yes.
So, but then there's one companion. There's one like, oh, you're going to roll around with me. Though the robot always seems to hang out in front of the ship, and so if you're,
oh really?
Yeah,
oh man, I got to put him back. Oh man, so like the fucking adoring fan showed up and booted the robot off my crew, and I have not had the robot since. I should probably get the robot back.
He's great. He'll stand in front of the ship usually every time I land the ship, and then sometimes if I'm being chased by stuff, he'll engage in combat even though he's not a companion because stuff is right next to him.
Okay.
Going
to get Vasco again then.
I don't.
Does anyone else get like a real Carl Sagan thing from him, like Robo Carl Sagan, like something about his voice delivery, especially the way he says billions? It was like, oh, you're doing a thing here, aren't you?
I could see that. Like I think they've been pretty upfront about their influences. Like, didn't they use the term NASA punk?
So that's one of the things I want to talk about here.
Is like there's a ton of like real world space and exploration type influence in this.
Yeah. My thing with this game, which there's two things. One of them is that I find this game not necessarily obnoxiously so, but like a little bit disappointingly milquetoast in terms of the way that its characters are written and kind of the way the universe is sort of like presented to you. There are like, slightly darker things like snake cults and, space pirates that want to murder you and shit like that going around. But a lot of the people you talk to, there is this incredible gee whiz, gosh, mister kind of fucking like wide-eyed optimism, I guess, is the way to phrase it. And I don't mind that necessarily, but it just feels very edgeless, a lot of what they are doing with their storytelling and their presentation. Like, I find the term NASA punk really annoying because NASA's not punk, it's literally a government agency. But what they are doing with like, hey, we're creating technology that looks like it could have spawned out of the visual style of what old NASA space shuttles and things like that look like. The first time you pull up that console on your ship and there's like 1,000 buttons and screens and all that stuff, it's all very tactile. Like, that's cool. But the problem is I feel like they're also treating their story with this very much like, look at the endless possibilities of space. Look at all the wonderful things we could do if we could just, find these artifacts and solve the mystery of the universe and all that. And it's just a little grating to me because it feels like they are going out of their way to make this as like, it's not just exploration. It's that the exploration is the thing. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of other texture to this universe.
I mostly agree with you so far. Like,
I'm sure there's more that I haven't seen yet. I'm just saying those opening hours feel very much that.
I was extremely there for the first dozen hours or so and still mostly am there. Like, I'm trying to think on some stuff that's happened that's more interesting. Like, I will say the companions, if you roll around with one for long enough, they'll eventually just be like, hey, we should talk. And they at least have some depth to them. Like, they at least have backstories and some tragedy in their pasts or whatever. So there is some depth there. But yeah, like most of the writing and the character interactions has been like extremely straightforward. I would say
not just straightforward, but in sometimes like, and especially in the early goings when you're getting introduced to new people, it is an endless cavalcade of people literally just stating their personality traits out loud to you. Like when you meet that fucking CEO guy who's part of your thing, he's just like, yeah, I'm the CEO of this company and I'm the resident grumpy old man around here. And it's okay, why would fucking it feels like they're trying to get these establishing foundations of who all these people are out of the way as quick as possible.
Like I don't know. This comes to mind just because I talked to the dude again this morning, but I did a side quest for like a highfalutin rarity collector who like quite literally as part of his dialogue was just like, I don't work up a sweat, I leave the labor to the people who serve me. Just, okay, all right, that's pretty to the point.
I think the writing in this game falls flat a lot for me. I mean, I'm sure there's tons of it, so I chalk the Constellation up to being Constellation is a self-selecting bunch of kind of losers. So like
I'd say less losers and more like valedictorian style nerds.
Let's just say toothless, right? Like they're like if you're getting that vibe, everybody in there is just kind of like okay, yes, losers is a very mean way to say it and cynical. Let's say
like my character's a loser, but that's by design.
But like
what I mean is
starry-eyed and like wonders of space and
they're like
Willikers.
Yeah.
They're like overachievers.
Yeah. They're overachievers, but also they have a very optimistic view of the universe, and like it's beautiful. And like, look, I actually really like rolling with Barrett. He's my favorite character to roll with so far.
Pretty entertaining
because he's kind of like he's the closest thing to this. Like, I don't know, the universe kind of sucks, but I just roll with it. And like I just get myself. I rolled with, I think Sarah is her name, who's like the leader for a while, and she was too much for me. All the characters there are kind of cliches. Barrett seems kind of cool. The more I roll with Barrett, the more I'm like, I think you're sticking in my party. He's like good in a fight, so like he's all right there. I got the sense that I went to some other places. There's a trade. What's it called? The Trade Federation.
Trade Authority. Is that what you're thinking?
There are some darker places that are doing things in the universe, but also. I haven't hit the space horror yet. Maybe it is there. Maybe it's not. I haven't hit the Dark Brotherhood part of the of this game yet. But I'm with you, Alex, and just like everything does seem a little like like the quests you do on that main planet are range from like I need ingredients to make my drink for the bar to like can you go help the military scan some scanners? And it's like okay, well, there's a lot of fetching of quests on here.
I get that they are filling, like they have a lot of content they need to fill out in this, universe, which as compartmentalized as it is, does feel fairly big. Like there are a lot of places you can go and things you can do.
Yeah.
But I think it's not just that it's kind of aw shucks. It's that it feels like there just isn't much dimension beyond that. Again, in those early goings, and I think my bigger problem is that I was hoping. If not the story, then at least from a mechanical perspective, enough of what they were doing differently here would get me over the hump of not really liking the way that Bethesda makes these games, not loving the combat systems, not really enjoying like the way that you sort of interact with characters in those games. I've always had a problem with them. I've just never found them that interesting. And the one thing I think they do well, and when they separate themselves out, is that I think when you are in space, when you are in your ship, and you are doing stuff, and especially when you go to a place for the first time, they are really good at framing and presenting stuff with a appropriate level of grandeur. The first time you go to the Sol system, which is, our solar system, and they kind of bop you around, some of the different planets in the solar system and kind of let you know, like, what the status of stuff is. Like, some of those moments really pop. Like, it's like, oh, fuck, yeah, the first time you go into Neptune, and it's like, you have to creep up on this satellite while these fucking snake cultists are wandering around, and you have to not get noticed, is really cool.
It's like a spaceship stealth mission.
Yeah, and then when you dock with that space station that's been abandoned for the first time, that's also really cool. Like, there's some really great visual design, and the ship mechanics actually feel really good.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Did you get the skill that they lock what you would think would be core mechanics behind skills, although generally it's the first skill on the tree, so it's just 1 point, but there's a skill for like targeting mode, I think they call it, so you can lock onto other ships' specific systems. Did you get that yet?
So I haven't gotten that yet, but I didn't need it yet.
I did not do a disable or subsystem ship thing yet either.
Yeah, so like that skill lets you, and it goes into slow-mo also, and you don't even have to target it. Like you just pick them off a menu and it auto-targets for you, but you can like lock onto a ship, go into this like slow-mo targeting mode, and then pick like, I want to shoot out their engines or their laser cannon or their grav drive so they can't jump away type stuff. So like that stuff gets really fun of like, I'm going to try to surgically take their engines out and then go around behind them so I can dock with them and then take all of their stuff.
Yeah, boredom, shoot everybody, take their stuff.
Like, the space stuff is fairly cool.
It is. And both visually and mechanically, I think it works really well. I think the rest of it is just not doing it for me the same way that other Bethesda stuff does not. I think the gun combat is occasionally fine, but mostly very boring. I think that every character I've met so far, with the exception of Barrett and your robot, I've not really done anything for me in terms of like, I want to keep talking to this person or understand anything about them. And every time I meet a new person in some new area, it feels like just getting the same version of the same conversation where they just explain to you everything about the place you're on right now in the most plain spoken terms possible. And it just feels like, okay, no, I might as well just gone to an info kiosk. You know what I mean?
Their dialogue system feels like a checklist. Like you're just checking. It doesn't feel like a conversation. And part of that I think maybe is part of the presentation problem. They do the same thing where you're like mugshot style on the character, and then but it also is like some of the flow of it where you go through this whole line of dialogue and then the character resets back to their state and you go through the next line of dialogue. So like you can talk to a character about the tragedy in their lives and be like, yeah, I was really upset by this, this whole thing, and then be like, and then you'll go like, what's your favorite food? And like, I love ice cream. Ice cream is fantastic. There's no flow to the dialogue, and sometimes it feels like in a dialogue tree, I'm just trying to make everything gray, right? Let me just get through everything and make everything gray.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Like a lot of the character interactions just feel kind of flat. Like I did a very long weirdly long side quest that required going back and forth a bunch to kill spacers and then more spacers. Where it was a Freestar base. So basically, the Freestar and the UC just finished a war some years before this,
which everybody has lost somebody in. Every character has a tragic part.
Yes, of their story. And so this is a Freestar base that's been overrun by spacers, and a UC detachment has shown up to save them, basically. And so there's some good ideas there about these people all supposedly hate each other, but this and the commander of this UC force turns out to be awesome. She is extremely morally resolute and is just they're just soldiers. They're just soldiers getting paid to be shot at the same as I am. I'm not going to leave them to die. So that's actually probably the best character work I've seen so far. But even at the end of that, when everything settles and the Freestar commander is right next to the UC commander, there's not a lot of back and forth or interplay or much done with that concept of these are just soldiers, no matter who they're fighting for, working together type stuff. It was a cool idea that, again, sort of concluded in a pretty flat way.
I will. A funny thing about their dialogue system is they do transpose that onto ships, where they will freeze the ship in their ship mugshot with then the lines of dialogue on it. So it's got that just ship frozen there, and you're like, all right, now just talk to the ship.
Yeah.
But I do like the space stuff too. I think. I agree with all of those complaints about the dialogue stuff. The ship and space stuff for me, and I don't have a good solution for this, but going back to what you said before, Brad, everything is so compartmentalized that it doesn't feel contiguous. It doesn't feel like I went from this planet into the ship, into space, flew to this other planet, to the point where you can just fast travel from planet to planet, really, if you just want to do that and skip that part. But I kind of want to be in space. I want to lift off.
I absolutely wish you had more of an option to fly around manually and set courses manually, and drop out a grav drive in the middle of interstellar space and just hang there if you wanted, or
go into if you set, even if you're within a solar system or you're not going to initiate your grav drive, which is basically your light speed flight. It's not like you say, hey, go to this planet, and then you can't just walk around your ship or something like that. It's kind of what I want to do. I don't know why, but I want to say okay, look, I set the course we're going. Now I'm going to go talk to my crew members while I do a thing in the background.
I'm with you. Or I want some busy work to go do. I need to go repair an electro rifle while we're getting there or something. I know exactly. I wanted some of that same stuff out of No Man's Sky and didn't quite you want Mass Effect. All you want is to be on the Normandy, except you get to tell the Normandy where to go and then go talk to people and do stuff while you're getting there.
Which is, I feel like it's a little confused in places, and this isn't the only place where sometimes I feel like the game is a little confused, because they do have things on the ship where they have seats and stuff. And when you sit in it, it's how long do you want to wait? And it's well, if I were going to a planet and I needed to kill 5 hours while I go there, I would definitely just wait now, right? But I don't have to do that. I just quick load to the planet. So what I wind up doing is, if I'm low on health, I just sleep for an hour, right? I just do the minimum. I get all my health back.
And you get the well-rested bonus that gets you bonus XP.
And it's not I haven't found any other occasion to make time go by. I haven't reached anything where it's oh, nighttime is better for this, or you have to do. So I almost feel like the game maybe had that system travel in it, and they were like, "This is tedious. Let's just take that away and just fast travel."
They really seem like a lot of stuff is pretty well thought out in the game in terms of like kind of planetary mechanics and orbital stuff and everything. And like, I wouldn't be surprised if there are spots, because like I said, every planet has got like a climate rating, a hazard level. You know, like, oh, this one is, there's extra radiation here, or this one is like super cold or toxic or whatever. Like, I wouldn't be shocked at all if like on a hot planet, you can wait until night and the temperature goes ways down. And,
Interesting.
And it's less hazardous. I wouldn't be the slightest bit surprised if there's something like that. They thought through all the time stuff quite well, which I assume is all being handled dynamically, because there's a UT, a universal time.
Right.
And on any planet you're on, you get both the UT time and the local time. And
so
they
maybe
spell
the time
that
stuff
out.
will come into play more.
Yeah. Like they spell that stuff out pretty well. Like, you know, they've talked about like, oh, the lighting on planets is based on the atmosphere composition and stuff. Like,
okay,
that stuff in practice is pretty cool, because every planet has, like, No Man's Sky is cool, but there's a little bit of that cliche of like, okay, what color is the sky and what color is the grass on this planet? You know,
right.
It's like everything, like the planets all look like they're sort of popped out of a mold, or a lot of, not all of them, but a lot of them have
a
like,
lot
oh,
of
you know,
them do. The ones I've seen anyway.
Of course, granted, a lot of the planets in this are just very rocky, and they're also very similar in that respect, but that's at least a bit more of a nod toward realism, I guess. But like, the general look of the planets has been pretty diverse in this, I find, in a way that's been nice. But again, there's not much to do there.
I think this is probably the best looking Bethesda game I've played so far. Like, the people don't always look amazing, especially when they are staring you dead in the eye and you just have nothing to do but like really take in, you know, the level of detail in their face. But a lot of the environments, a lot of the cities, the ship stuff, the in-space stuff, like all that stuff has a real nice sheen and polish to it, which is to say that also there is some jank in this game, but I don't feel like a lot of it, for me at least, has been visual. It's more just been stuff like, you know, a person I'm talking to in a cutscene is not facing me, you know, totally. Or a character wandered into the middle of my cutscene, and so their face kind of got halfway chunked into it, that kind of stuff.
That's kind of the pathing stuff I was touching on before. I mean, it's worth saying, at least I can't speak for you guys, but most of what I've played was prior to the day one patch that just rolled out yesterday or the day before at the time of this recording, so I put a bunch of time. I saw a lot of bugs that may not be in the final game. I'm not sure, but I have definitely seen some bugs. Like, the scripting in a main story quest broke on me like 3 hours into the game, where a character was supposed to lead me somewhere, and when I concluded the conversation, she was like, all right, let's go, and then just stood there. And like, I had to reload multiple times and try to like push people around to try to make it work.
I'll say right now, I am in no way ready to declare this Bethesda's most bug-free experience, because there's still a lot left to see, and also I have experienced just enough to let me think it may not be.
I'm so far. I'm gonna say it's the least buggy big game they have done for me so far.
I'm with you. Even like the one I just rattled off was the only like truly progress blocking situation I've seen. Most of the other stuff has just been more goofy, like pathing. There was a bug which was listed in the day one patch changelog. That did you guys ever see this, where your companion would just start hovering? Like,
no, I haven't seen that.
It happened to the robot for me. The robot kind of got into this like balled up pose and was just like hovering, like levitating or following me around, which was pretty fun.
You know, I didn't look at the patch notes. I played this morning, so I assume I pulled the patch. But I will say the robot, he's big and chunky. Yeah. When you're in zero gravity, he's just walking through air. He does his walk animation, which is like doesn't look great. But like bug wise, I've only had like really bad ragdolling. It's not even a bug. It's just the ragdolling gets so out of. I've had people's torsos get caught in, you know, hang from the ceiling and that kind of stuff. Nothing too bad with like actual bugs. Yeah. And I am the first one to give Bethesda credit, because I am the first one to give them crap when their stuff is completely broken. So so far in this, for the amount of plates that I feel like are spinning, it has held together okay for me.
So far, nothing heinous on my front.
Yeah.
And again, that scripting bug I had was before the patch, so that may well be fixed at this point. There's one moment I've had, I'm trying to remember if that was after the patch or not. It doesn't even feel like a bug. It's the most disappointing thing that's happened in the game to me so far. It doesn't even feel like a bug as such, so much as it is like multiple systems maybe not like meshing well together. So like, when you get inducted into Constellation, I'm sure you remember talking to Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
There's part of that intro dialogue is like, she's like, yes, we expect every member to like abide by their own morality.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't ask too many questions about how you get things done. You know what I mean?
Yes, I
You
remember
that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like she's pretty upfront about that, right? Like,
Mhm.
I'm not misremembering. Like
no, it's very clear.
like they go out of their way to make it clear, like, hey, we're not all a bunch of goody two shoes. Like, you get things done how you see fit to get them done. I came upon, and she was still my companion at this point. I came upon I think it was a random encounter. Like, I jumped into a system, and like there was a ship there in distress, and the captain gets on the radio. They hail me, and is just like, oh my god, they fucked everything up. You got to help me. And then like sound of commotion, and then this other lady comes on, and she's like, oh, the captain needed to take a nap. We're fine here. Don't worry about it. And like I kept going through this thing, and it was clearly they had hijacked this guy and like probably just killed him. And meanwhile, she's yelling at a guy to fix the systems faster in the background. And long story short, it turned into a fight. Like they got their shit back up, and I got into a fight with them and disabled them again. I just shot out their guns and engines or whatever. And I was like, well, fuck these people. I'm taking this ship. Like they stole this ship. They are pirates. I want another ship. Also, that's the other thing. Ships are very expensive, and I have yet to get a second one, and I really want a bigger one. So I was like, hey, perfect, golden opportunity. Like, this is defensible morally. So I board. I don't know if you guys have shot out a ship and then boarded it before.
Yes,
it's very cool. It's very cool that you can do that. Anyway, I'll cut to the chase. We go on there. There's a bunch of spacers. Sarah, the whole way, is just like, it's like, get ready. They're not going to give this up without a fight. You know, like she's like egging me on to go kill the spacers who have just attacked us. She's killing them herself. The second I kill the last spacer on the ship, I get this big, because this game kind of has Telltale style, like...
Yeah, Sarah will remember this.
Sarah liked that. Like, Sarah didn't like, you know... Like, she turns on a dime the second I kill the last pirate, and it's just literally, like, calling... It's like, what is wrong with you, you monster? Like, how can you do this?
Like, you boarded the ship and killed the crew? Like,
yes.
Oh, wow.
Like, she goes full on into this, you have done a reprehensible thing here...
Oh, wow.
...mode, and... quite literally says something along the lines, if you keep up this kind of behavior, I'm out of here.
Wow, so did you reload? Like,
yes, I reloaded because and it straight up said like Sarah hated that or whatever. You know, like she went full on like this is completely unacceptable, and I'm like, everything in this game up to this point has made it seem like you personally and the game itself would be fine with me doing this.
It's one of the reasons I ditched Sarah.
There's a story mission where you have to go kill a bunch of spacers with her, and she's gung-ho about it.
This must have been a thing that bugged for you. Like
that absolutely is either a bug or it's just systems not clicking with each other exactly right.
Like you killed the actual crew of this ship.
Right,
like,
right.
Without,
like it could very well be an actual bug, and I'm sure that is probably not what they intended, but it was just, it really broke the spell, you know? It was like, because I was just getting to the point in this game, and I still mostly feel this way, that like, you kind of can do what you want in this, like... To the extent that the story lets you, I don't know if you can literally go become a cultist and the story accommodates that or whatever, but in terms of how you want to play your spacefarer, like, do you want to be a Han Solo or a XYZ? Like, you can kind of decide, I want to go gun a bunch of ships down and board them and take all their stuff and take the ships if you want. You know, you can be a goody two-shoes.
I have not commandeered a ship yet, so I don't know what happens. Like, do you know what would happen?
I should have done it just to see. At the time, I was so incensed. I was like, fuck this. Like, I'm just going to... Because, you know, I took a big relationship penalty.
Yeah.
Because you're building affinity with all your companions, and I assume that unlocks things. I did have the option to, like, sit down in the ship and fly it, I believe, is how it worked. I think that's how you do it, is you just sit in the chair.
Would you leave your other ship there?
I don't know. I'm not clear on. They probably accommodate it somehow. We sent a tug and brought it back.
Or maybe one of your other crew can take it.
Yeah, or somebody else can fly it for you.
I dumped Sarah. There were a couple of things where I was doing something that was ethically gray, let's say, but for the greater good, and she was like, you know, wagging her finger, and I was like, you know, Sarah, I think this isn't going to work out between the two of us. This isn't how I want to play this game. You know, I was like going to sneak some stuff out of UNC storage or whatever for a person that had their stuff confiscated, and was like, she's like, I don't know if I can get down with this. I was like, you know what? You talk a big game, but
why don't you get down on that planet while I go do this then? Because we're done here.
How did you go about that one?
I did them I did it two ways. So the first one I did was I just got the key card from the back room for that storage unit, and then I wound up passing the persuasion check for the guy who's in front of it as well, and he let me in and was like, just don't say anything. That's for the ingredients for the bar, right?
Yeah.
Did that. Sarah didn't like it, and then as soon as I had the opportunity to get Barrett back in the game, Barrett was like, Barrett wouldn't care. Barrett's all about doing what needs to be done out there on the edges of space. I will sum up or begin to sum up by saying, so far this is a game I think I want to. I'm still poking around trying to make the fun I want to have in the game. It feels like I am seeking that out more than being hand-fed like a fun narrative. Like sometimes it feels like work. Sometimes I'm really enjoying what's going on. So, you know, and I think that's probably due to some of the openness of the game where you could just be off the beaten path for your entire time. I don't know. Like you're constantly spawning into things where you're like, how much loot do you want? Do you want to just sit there and grind away for 20 hours to buy a ship and sell every Grendel gun you find or, you know, whatever?
I found so many fucking Grendel guns, dude. Holy shit.
Got a lot of Grendels.
So I take them on and then I put them in my ship's hold and then I go, there is a sell from ship inventory I found finally. So some of the UI is not great in terms of nested systems being in weird places you didn't expect them, like crew management buried in a ship menu somewhere, or your ship not being able to send directly to your ship's cargo bay. You take it yourself and then you could put it in the ship cargo, but you can't give it to your crew.
I think just the basic inventory view is extremely limited. It's just one column. It's just a single list that you scroll through, and it takes up like a sixth of the, or maybe a fourth of the screen. So it's like there's so much more room. They could have exposed more of the inventory and to let you see more of what you have.
This feels like some stuff they might even, as the game lives a little bit more out in the wild, be like, okay, we went in and we added a thing that's like send directly to cargo hold or something like that.
I mean, this doesn't help console players, but PC the UI will get modded to hell and back like in a week for sure.
So I'm kind of I'm enjoying it. I think okay. I think I want it at this point. I just feel like I want to grab something. I'm looking for purchase. Like I'm waiting for the thing to. I'm waiting to like really like make traction with Starfield. And right now my tires are spinning sometimes, and I'm like, you know.
I'd say more than sometimes for me. Like it's maybe 70% of the time I feel like I am just trudging through what they want me to do, and I'm finding these nuggets of fun here and there in some of the side stuff and the exploration and just kind of being in my ship and tooling around. But I think a lot of what you're doing, especially in the opening hours, like I don't mind a slow burn. I'm fine with slow sci-fi and like taking your time and building a story. But you have to at least grab me in the beginning, and I think that's what I have not found yet, is the thing that grabs me and says, okay, I'm interested in this. I'm actually intrigued, and there is a propellant behind me pushing me forward.
Yeah.
That's pretty much where I was at for the first 6 hours or so, and the main story still doesn't have a hook that I've really been caught by. Like, I'm still just on an artifact hunt, you know, like nothing.
Right.
They're introducing more characters. You hit a point where after the first couple steps of the story, they're just like, okay, now here's a bunch of stuff we need you to do. Just go do them at your leisure. So I've done one of those three, but at least they're starting to introduce more characters and sending me to different parts of space. But yeah, like the other thing I was gonna say is do not get too mired in doing the little 10-minute quests that are peppered around every settlement.
Yeah,
like don't do too many of those, because I did a lot of those and I was just like, every one of these is like,
it's the same shit.
Yes, I'm getting XP and money, but like it's just there's no rewarding writing or mechanics here really at all. It's just a bunch of fetchy questy stuff back and forth.
There is one where I really want to find out what the story. I want to see how this tree thing resolves on that starting planet. There's something about this tree that
I've got. There's. I mean, we could probably sit here for 5 hours talking about this game. There are like 8 tiers of mission. Well, 8 is excessive, but there's like There's main missions, there's activities, there's faction missions, there's like a couple others. But yeah, I have an activity, I believe, which is talk to the scientist by the tree.
Right.
And actually, that's another thing I should mention. Like the quest log really could use more context for each mission.
Yeah,
definitely.
So, like for example, the activity tier, which is like the activities are literally the ones where like incidental ambient dialogue from an NPC as you walk by will add an activity. They're not even like things you have to interact with to pick up a little quest, but like,
and they fire hose those at you pretty early on.
Yeah, I've got like 15 at least of them, but the thing is those don't even tell you like where you picked them up or where they send you. Like in the activity list, I've got one that's like talk to Kaylee.
Yeah.
I'm like you spent a lot of time talking about how big this galaxy is. You should maybe tell me a little more about where Kaylee is in this galaxy. I mean,
you can do
set
a
it as
show
your
on
active
map.
quest.
Yeah, you could show on map, but even I'm with you.
But it's not a mechanical problem because you make it your active quest and it shows you exactly where to go. It's more
not always though. Sometimes it doesn't show you an icon, which I find really frustrating. And maybe it's just because I haven't been to the place yet where they want me to go. But there have definitely been some where I highlight it and I'm looking around for that blue icon and I'm not seeing it.
Sometimes you have to turn the hand scanner on to see where the objective is or to see the path that sends you there. But it's more, for me, I'm just like, I'm scanning this list. I want to decide what to do next of the 80 quests I have. Like, I'd like a little more context about like I might just ditch this talk to Kaylee one because like I don't know who she is or why I would care about that quest. Like I'm so divorced from the context of why I picked that quest up in the first place that it feels way too mechanical to re-involve myself.
I think I know who Kaylee is. If you ever want to point nudge in the right direction, but I think that goes back to what I was saying about the dialogue. A lot of that stuff just winds up feeling more checklisty than kind of narratively nourishing, right? Like it's more like, oh, I got this thing, I should just run through the steps so I can get the XP. Versus, which is its own thing. I'm a very checklist person in games too. I could just like run through the checklist stuff, but I think, Alex, what you said also is a thing I want to happen so badly, which is just an attachment to something. Like the ship, the characters, my character, I feel like I'm not even attached to really. Like,
I wish I could do more with my character. And maybe, again, this might be one of those things where it's like, more options open up as you start to, align yourself and do more things. But like, the dialogue choices do not have a lot of variance in personality from what I have seen so far. Like there are some that kind of nudge in a direction or another. There are some that characters will like more than others. But like, if you really want to kind of build a personality for yourself, this game does not seem like it has like a ton of options for you, at least in terms of like the way that you address people and talk to them.
Yeah, a lot of a lot of the dialogue stuff is locked up behind skill unlocks. Like social is one of the 5 categories of skills, and that's where all the bribery and persuasion and diplomacy type stuff is. So you kind of have to spec into that if you want a character that can respond a bunch of different ways or be a fast talker or whatever.
Yeah, and occasionally I'll get my trait will pop up. Like hey, wanted or whatever it is will pop up as a thing I can do for my background. But yeah, like everything feels a little prepackaged in a way that doesn't give me motivation to see it through. And like maybe that'll change once I get my own ship and I spend a lot of money on a ship. But I also I just want to do that thing. I don't know why I keep coming back to this, but I want to do that thing where I set course and walk around my ship and just like because there's research to be done on the ship. There's like you can learn to cook on the ship. You can do all these things on your ship, but you don't do it at the same time you're doing something else. So I want that feeling of moving through the galaxy.
Yeah. Yes.
Because
everything you're describing you can do on the ground or in orbit, but you're not going anywhere at the same time.
Yeah.
Like you're not exploring at the same time you're doing that. You're just sitting still, and you want to feel a sense of travel and forward momentum and exploration at the same time you're working a research station.
I want the Star Trek, Star Wars, we've set a course. Now we're going to do some social stuff on the ship in the downtime, right? Like, come sit down and talk to me. We have 3 hours to go, mull about or like do some target or something. Like, it's the life on a ship, right? That's your space trucking, right? Like, what's the life of a space trucker? It shouldn't be fast traveling. It should be the lonely hours out there in the abyss.
Like, the thing I always go back to, the one of these games I always go back to, like, in terms of like big expansive stuff like this is Red Dead Redemption 2, which is the sense that, that's a game that has fast travel to a limited degree, but so much of the experience was just about planning adventures and doing things and like, finding stuff along the way as you're on your way to your next destination. Like, no game has ever done that better, I feel like, than that particular game. 100%. And I wish there was even just a fraction of that here, where it's like the interstitial journey can create some adventure or some moments or some things that you do. It's something I wish they had pulled from. Like, I understand you don't do the diving into atmosphere, pole to pole walking of No Man's Sky, but the longer space travel between planets and bodies and other things that you're going to, stuff where you have that freedom to kind of move through space and decide what you want to do when you're on your ship and stuff's moving between places. I wish there was just some of that or more of that than they are currently giving you.
So there is more of that out there. Like, it's not, you're never going to get the sense of moving around that you want.
Right.
Unless something drastically changes later. But I have at least, like, my favorite moments with the game have been random encounters with little scripted random shit. But I'm trying to think, like, what you would need to do to see it. Like, probably... I would say, like, go to more places they don't send you to. Like, I've spent a lot of time just going to other planets for just because they look interesting or whatever, and that's where I've been having a lot of this stuff. Like, other ships will land near you occasionally on planets. I assume you've seen this.
I've seen that once.
Okay, so that's an example of, like, not every time, but often when I see a ship land near me on a random planet, I run over there and see what it's about to see if I can steal the ship or. Whatever. But like one time, well, okay, this is both cool and also revealing of how mechanical this game is, because like in basically every case, the ship is unlocked and you can just waltz right onto it and nobody on there will react in any way as if it is weird that a stranger on a random planet in the middle of nowhere just stepped onto their ship. Like, they're just like, oh, hey, how's it going? Like, that's weird and kind of takes you out of it a little bit. But like, one time I did that and went on there and they turned out to be smugglers, and I went up to the captain, and before I even said anything, he was like, oh, good, you're here, you're late, what took you so long? And I'm like, and the options are, it's like very straightforward. You seem to have me mistaken for someone else or whatever, but then, there's one that straight up says lie, and it's like, I had to run an errand, sorry I'm late, and so I like I played it cool, and it turned out he thought he was handing off his illicit cargo to me, which I took.
Just take a ship.
And no, I didn't do that, but because I figured I was in deep enough already. But I was like, so where's this stuff going? He was like, wait, they didn't tell you? They sure don't tell me. Like, you better get it there, though. And I was like, well, whatever, I'm out of here. And it was some good shit. It was like a very good jump pack. Like, they have loot rarity in this game, by the way. I don't think Fallout 4 had that, but it's straight up blue, purple, gold items. Anyway, it was some really good shit, but then now there is one other, the Ecliptic Mercenaries, something.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
They're like kind of more high, like elite, sort of high tier bounty hunter types. Like,
they're legit in a way some of the other factions are not.
Yeah, like one of those guys has been on my ass, like randomly showing up trying to hunt me down since I took that shit. Which was just like a cool thing to stumble into that led to
that does
3 hours. 3 hours later, somebody showed up to kill me in orbit. And sure enough, I could not kill them.
Really?
But like, some things are mechanical and some things feel very free form, because like I died like 6 times on this guy. I was like, there's no way. I'm like a level 1 ship here. What the fuck am I supposed to do? And then it occurred to me, it seemed like the kind of thing where it would be like, well, you can't jump away because you're in the middle of combat. You know what I mean? It's like, you have to kill everybody before you can leave.
But you
and then I just tried it.
Yeah.
And you totally can.
Yeah.
I was like,
if
oh,
they
wow.
disable the grav drive, you can, which has happened to me.
So that's what it is. It's not, they don't arbitrarily say, oh, you're in combat, you can't jump to another system.
Yeah.
It's, is your grav drive still functional? Then you can leave. Like that's a cool thing, because especially when you take into account that you can do the same thing to them. It's like, then it's like, okay, if my grav drive or theirs gets shot out, then I or they are not going anywhere. But it's like, it's a cool like in-world rule instead of an arbitrary restriction that I thought. That kind of stuff, that's where I feel like choice comes in, and it feels like, oh, I actually thought to try something that I just assumed was disallowed, and it turned out to be okay, and then it got me the hell out of there. And yeah, that was cool.
I learned that in a tooltip, because during a loading tooltip, and I should say that there's a lot of loading, but it's usually pretty small loading, at least on the Series X where I'm playing it, and the PC. There are multiple loads between rooms and ships and stuff like that, but
some are longer than others. But
I've never hit anything that's, aside from the initial load into the game, that's very long. But on a tooltip on one of them, it said, if you use your grav drive to escape battle, story critical ships will remain there for the next time you return. I was like, oh, okay. Interesting. Okay. They're like, other ships might not be there, but story mission critical ships will remain there.
They did, like, did Morrowind just let you kill literally anyone you wanted? Because at some point, they started putting up more guardrails on their games where like you can't permanently kill quest NPCs and stuff like that. So they do try to preserve some of the basic storytelling.
A couple of other things to touch on before we bounce out of here. There is base building, outpost building. I tried a little bit of it. So I'm mining uranium on a planet, but I didn't have enough money to really outfit and kit out the base. It seems like you can assign staff to manage that stuff, but I couldn't do it. It's probably because I didn't build a habitat or any place for them to stay. I built like a solar array and a miner, and that's it. And there is uranium coming out of the planet, but I have to collect it from the miner, and I don't know where that goes in the end. You can build storage containers and stuff, but I didn't have enough resources to do it.
I saw a tooltip made it sound like you can automatically have resources sent between bases.
That sounds
eventually
cool. Yeah.
So it sounds like eventually because obviously you can only extract the resources that a planet has, so you're going to have to build a bunch of bases to get all the stuff, but it sounds like you can establish like shipping lanes to just get it all to one place.
That could be the whole game for me. If I get that going and I figure out what that is, that could be the thing that I'm like, I love this game because I'm just getting resources to build my shipping empire.
So that's kind of where I'm at now, where I'm starting to see glimpses now of the different lives you could lead.
Yeah.
Lives you could lead in this game, and like I kind of really want to be a pirate and a smuggler, and so I'm starting to think in those directions. Like I picked up my first contraband, which is a suitcase full of harvested organs. It was worth a ton of money, and I forgot that I had it. And then I went back to the main UC planet for a story quest, and I was like, well, fuck me, because they immediately tagged me with it. And I started to just reload. I started to be like, I should just go drop that off. I don't want to get in hot water here. Turned out to not just be you're in jail, pay the fine and get out. It started a whole like major new quest line.
Oh, interesting.
From getting caught like that. So like it seems worth just sort of letting things happen like that, because you don't know where they're going to lock like actual story or quest content behind what seems like just a bad outcome.
So it's kind of along that path. I had contraband. I was going to the story planet. Like I said, they wouldn't let me land at the main base, and as soon as I started getting scanned and it said you have 0 chance of evading this, I went to a civilian outpost on that planet, and then I spent, and this is where I left off playing, about an hour and a half exploring caves and stuff on that planet and scanning everything. So like completely sidetracked.
Yes.
Just, like, oh, look, there's a bunch of stuff to scan here. What are these miners? They're all dead here. I'll say for the most part, and the thing that, again, for me narratively doesn't really pay off is a lot of these places I go to, it's mostly I'll get some loot and some money. I never get like a cool narrative thing.
That's probably the weakest thing. It's how fast travel oriented is the game is, and it's that. It's for me, it's that like very little of the quest writing has felt like a truly big payoff for what you're doing, for the busy work you're doing.
Or even just the incidental stuff where I think sometimes in my mind I still feel like, oh, if I go to this abandoned space station, I'm going to find out something horrible happened here. And sometimes it's like, no, it's just a bunch of spacers, get the loot, and then I'm waiting for the thing that's like, quest completed. And it's like, no, I just leave now. I think I killed everyone. I think I'll just leave.
Yeah, like I randomly came upon there are space stations everywhere, and I came upon one this morning that wasn't answering my hails, and I was just like, well, I should go see what's going on there. And it had been overrun by spacers.
Yeah.
And it was actually like, I think the combat's okay. It's certainly not best in class by any means, but it's better. No. It's better than what I expected coming from Fallout 4. I'll say
certainly get a lot of weapons.
Like the guns feel good. I would say it's the shooting of the enemies that's a little questionable, because like it's the same thing they showed in footage forever of like shoot a guy once, he goes into a canned like stumble animation, you keep shooting him and he's still just doing that same animation. It doesn't feel reactive and punchy, but the guns themselves, the design and feel of them have been pretty good.
I've had a shotgun or two that feel like really like they're not doing the damage they should.
Sure.
I got one that is great. I got a blue shotgun that was a double barrel, like you have 2 shots. Like that felt pretty fucking good, but a lot of the machine guns have done nothing for me.
I found a pretty good Grendel finally. It's like a really modded out one.
There's an extremely elaborate like weapon part upgrade and mod thing that I'm guessing none of us have touched. I sure haven't.
Not at all.
I did. No, I unlocked it. I put a scope on a gun.
Okay. Like I haven't touched the weapon modding or the research projects or the cooking or like almost any of that stuff. Just I've done a little bit of ship upgrading.
I've dipped a toe into each of those things, where now when I go back to my ship, I see if I have anything to drop it, because you could do it partial, like piecemeal, as you get pieces for those things. I upgraded all the parts on the ship that I could afford to upgrade. The grav drive, not the grav drive, because you can bounce. The grav drive seems to be the higher energy bar. You have an energy threshold on your ship. The more energy you put into the grav drive, the further you can jump out instead of making hops to other planets. And I was like, that doesn't really bother me now. Like,
Yeah.
I'm okay doing those. But shields, engines, so you have laser guns, ballistic weapons, and missiles on your ship.
Yeah.
Lasers take out shields, ballistics do hull damage, and I think missiles also do hull damage, right? Is that okay? So if you want to disable a ship, you definitely don't want to fracture the hull, right? You want to disable the shields, and then you want to. What do you use to? I've never disabled one. Do you use lasers to disable it?
It's tough. I have definitely had cases where I took their shields down. Like, okay, I'm going to surgically carve out their engines so I can board them, and I still end up just killing them in the process of trying to. Okay. Yeah, it's hard to manage that. Sometimes.
Maybe you get like an EMP weapon or something. But
I would hope so. I like even lasers still can kill them when their shields are down pretty quickly.
But the ship upgrading is fairly easy. You just go to like a guy on port and it's like, okay. Though keeping track sometimes in the UI of what you have versus what you want can be a little funky because it's just like a, like Grav Drive 2 or something like that. Is this what I have? Because it's when you buy it, it sells back for less than you bought it for. So sometimes the prices don't match and all those things. But I dip my toe into all those things, and all those systems seem like, they'll pay off if you get in there. I haven't done the put a whole new compartment on a ship yet. I've only upgraded the pieces I have. Like I haven't done the ship modular building yet.
To like make it bigger, you mean? To have more space to walk around in? Yeah, I haven't done that either. Real quick, can you sell old ship systems when you buy new ones? I haven't found a way to do that.
I'm pretty sure the guy will take them off your hands. Though I don't actually. I think maybe you sell it immediately. I'm not sure. That's a good question. Okay. I thought maybe it's just sold back as part of the price because you kind of put things in a shopping cart and then you check out.
Maybe that's what it is because I couldn't find them in my inventory after I bought new ones. Sorry, I super sidetracked myself talking about combat and stuff. All I was going to say was I docked with that space station that wasn't answering my hails and it had been overrun by spacers and all the scientists were dead. And after I killed all the spacers and read a bunch of terminals and like emails and stuff, there was a whole little story in those terminals of like just shitty management, like there was a whole thing about like, oh, security's getting kind of light around here because like 2 of the security guards got married and bounced. And like, oh, they want us to like do a bunch of evacuation drills instead of hiring more security. Oh, what's up with the administration gets an escort to the shuttles in an evacuation plan while we are supposed to grab weapons and shoot our way out? Like there's some kind of class division thing in all these emails. And I was like, that's kind of an interesting story. And it ends where it seems like everybody's evacuated the shuttles. And I'm like, how great would it be if I could go to that shuttle bay and find somebody still there to talk to wrap up this story, to like tie a bow on this setup that has been made on this station. And I looked everywhere and could not find like a shuttle bay or any survivors or any. There was just like, it was kind of like environmental storytelling with no conclusion.
That's right. Yes.
And it was a cool moment. Like it was cool to find this station and hail it and board it and kill all these spacers. And the combat was actually pretty fun. But I just needed something at the end of it to really contextualize it and make it feel like rooted in the world and like it paid off.
Exactly how I feel with a lot of that stuff. Oftentimes I also wonder like, oh, did I just make my way here outside of the story mission that would have sent me here to go retrieve something? I wound up in a cool spot. It was a casino and there was zero gravity. It was my first zero gravity place that was like, it's cool because like ballistic weapons will push you around and everybody's floating around. They're above you, below you. And it was a kind of a cool fight. But it was also overrun by spacers. And then, I kind of went in this casino, did everything, found this back room in a tunnel that had a computer terminal, and it said, enter the jackpot code. And like, I didn't have the numbers for it. And I searched that entire place top to bottom, couldn't find it. I was like, man, is this a mission I find on a different planet that is going to send me like, because I have found other missions in terminals that are like, hey, the secret pirate stash is on planet whatever. So I was like, do I just not have this thing to do this? Which is okay. That's okay with me because it's like, look, that's how it's going to work. If you're going to explore stuff, not everything's going to have a payoff. But stuff like that, Brad, you were talking about where it's like, I guess I'm just done here. I guess I just turn around and leave. Because
it was like half hour. It was a substantial amount of time I spent on that station. It's not a throwaway thing. And it was just something at the end.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of Grendels. That's a lot of Grendels to get.
I don't know why this comes to mind, and I didn't even finish the game, although I put several dozen hours into it. But like Witcher 3, I remember feeling like a game where like almost everything I did, large and small, felt like it had a narrative payoff at the end.
Yeah.
Like it felt like it felt like those side quests were written start to finish, and I wasn't just getting some mats or money at the end of it. You know, like there was some little story bow tied on it that made it feel satisfying, and this needs more of that from what I've seen.
Yeah, yes, those are definitely felt more curated. This feels a little bit more like the Mass Effect 1 cookie cutter based stuff where you're just like, oh, you go in there and there's some baddies and you're going to get some things. I mean, it's a little more than that, but again, for what they're allowing you to do, there's probably some trade-off we're making between, look, you can go to this base outside of the story thing. You're not going to get the full context for it. And that's just because you decided to go in this damn base. Like, that's on you. Which is like, okay, you're right. It is on me. If I just wanted to go down the path. But you're right, after doing 45 minutes in the base and you're like, I guess I just leave. I guess I just get the car and go. You know, it's interesting. I'm gonna keep going with it. Coming off of something or in parallel to something like Baldur's Gate, which I feel like is just so character driven, and so has its claws in me in terms of the characters, and all your companions are interesting and dynamic. This feels much flatter, even though it's probably has a more expansive universe to explore, and build bases. That's nothing you could do like that in Baldur's Gate, and you can do all this ship building. I think I just need a couple of more places for me to invest myself into it, and I think I'll be good there. But right now, like I said, I'm still working through it, trying to find the part where I latch onto it and become like, man, I've got the coolest ship, the coolest gear. I'm still at the part where I'm swapping gear out constantly. I'm still battling with my encumbrance weight. I don't like. I'm still maybe struggling with the systems, also trying to figure out exactly what I need to give and what the game's giving me in terms of stuff. Like, do I need to pick up every apple? Do I?
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Right, let me assure you, fucking no.
Like I at this point, I only pick up ammo. I pick up any crafting materials that I find of any kind.
Okay. But apples are food crafting.
Well, sure.
Like when you go into, you should go check out that food thing because it's going to ask you for apples and cheese at some point and be like, oh, yeah. I need to go get cheese to learn how to make a ham and cheese sandwich.
Sure. I've never been huge. I guess like Breath of the Wild is the closest I've gotten to like a cooking system that gives you a bunch of buffs. Like I don't know that I'll bother with that here. Yeah. Although the game is getting harder the deeper in I get.
That's another thing we didn't mention. Some of the food stuff you cook will be like, hey, you get some kind of buff to a stat.
Yeah, it's a lot of like faster move speed. It's very Zelda. Like it's you move faster, you have higher damage resist, or you know that kind of stuff.
I really just want more points to drop in and make my way down the tree. So what I should do is just do more of those mainline quests. I think.
Yeah, like you can buy more encumbrance if you want it. You can some armor gets you various types of mitigation of that. But I'm also carrying 24 weapons right now, and is that necessary? Absolutely not.
Like, I carry as many as I can favorite. Yeah, and then I put the rest on my ship.
That's what I need to do. That's
what 3, 6. It's 3 on each hot slot, right? So it's
it's
9 total. I think it's 9 because on the
12, isn't it?
It's 12. I think.
Oh, sorry, they're 4. Yes, right.
There's 12, and I think they can all be weapons if you want.
I keep one as a healing item, but like I've got my
that's good. Yes, you should
handguns on one, my shotguns and axe. My shotgun, I got a cutlass now, and then my laser weapon and my it's like probably name all the weapons at this point. It's the Grendel, the Mastiff. What's the one with the M?
Oh no, it's not the Marauder, is it? Maelstrom.
Maelstrom, yeah.
Maelstrom. It's
the Maelstrom.
Yes, there's like
what's the energy weapon? The big.
There's the Equinox. There's the Solstice.
Yeah.
So I haven't gotten a lot of energy weapons yet.
Did you get the big revolver, the Magnum one? That it's
I've got a couple of those.
It's like they're powerful, man. I've been using those, and then I started putting points into the pistol upgrade thing because like. Also, ammo, I run out of ammo on a certain weapon, I switch over to another weapon.
Yeah, there's tons of weapons. Like, they definitely brought it on that front.
So, yeah, I think my long and short of it is, even with my hour count, again, I'm probably like 12 hours in, plus or minus an hour or two, I'm still figuring it out. Like, I think I want to like it more than I'm liking it, and, like, I want to see the potential maybe more than I currently am. I'm not saying I'm forcing myself to play it, but there are definitely times where I'm like, maybe this time is the time. Like, it's going to grab me. But I think it seems like a game that has a lot of potential.
Yes, there's a lot of stuff in there. Like I said, I'm a few more hours than you guys, and I'm getting closer to feeling like I'm actually seeing and starting to realize some promise. Like the thing I want to do right now is, through talking to people, I found out that there are both shielded cargo compartments you can install on your ship that are immune to scans, and there are jammers you can install.
Okay.
And apparently between the two of those, you can pretty much roll around with whatever illicit shit you want without getting scanned. So, like, that's the type of stuff I'm excited about, is like, here is a progress blocker or an obstacle or something that is getting in the way of me being whatever kind of dirtbag I want or whatever. Yeah. And, like, I want to pursue that now. Like, I want to get over that hump and do cool stuff.
Yeah. And I think, Alex, everything you said, I think I agree with, in terms of stuff feeling flat and disconnected. So, I'm sure there'll be more Star Citizen talk in the future. I think
Starfield.
Sorry.
There will not be more Star Citizen talk in the immediate future.
Sorry, I'm not going to play. One more thing I have to touch on, which is that I played the majority of this so far on an Xbox Series S.
Yes.
On account of being out of town, and we've gotten some questions about how it runs. Shockingly fine. Or maybe not shocking. Like, actually, the way they were talking coming into this about the 30 FPS lock and everything, I kind of wondered. I was like, maybe it's actually totally fine. It is totally fine.
Huh. I've played on a Series X. Performance-wise, it has been mostly okay. I do see some texture stuff that looks kind of grungy and funky once in a while.
Yeah, so on the S, that's the biggest. It's less textures and more resolution. There are definitely spots in specific contexts where you can see, like, oh, this is definitely running at a low resolution enough that this looks like very profoundly jaggy. But I've played it on S, X, and PC at this point, and, like, the S is absolutely a fine place to play it. Like, I had no real complaints. Like, load times, frame rate, everything was right there with the X.
My preference so far between the console and the PC, it's mostly, I mean, on the what I'm playing on the 4080 here, it runs very nicely, and it does just fine. It's mostly, I think I enjoy the mouse and keyboard in terms of loot management, being able to mouse over stuff very quickly and just be like, I'm taking this and this, and I'm not taking anything else. And combat just feels better to me with the mouse and keyboard right now. I just have a better time with it, pulling off headshots and even ship combat, tracking ships and stuff like that.
I'll probably switch to at some point. I just haven't, like, put in the time yet.
Yeah, I'll be curious if you do. Like, I again, it's one of those things where, look, I like sitting on the couch. I like playing it on the big screen. But then it's got, between the PC version, the Microsoft store version at least, it's got cross save and all that stuff. So cross progression. So it's pretty easy to bounce back and forth. I haven't had an issue yet doing it. Starfield, not Star Citizen. Starfield. No. By the time you hear this, you probably, what is it, one more day, and then the early access stuff.
8 hours.
8 hours. Okay,
I believe the embargo lifts 8 hours before people who bought the expensive edition can play it. We will be streaming it at the time this podcast goes up.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Although per the embargo, we can only play it from a new save.
That's okay. I think just kind of going in some of the mechanics and stuff.
Yeah, and I'm actually I don't know if we'll do it on that first stream, but I'm almost curious, like we said, how fast they just give you a ship and turn you loose.
Yeah.
Like, part of me just wants to, maybe because I've already played through it all, like, skip all that early Constellation story stuff and just go straight to doing what you want and see if it can be played in this more, like, elite Wing Commander Privateer style, like, here's a giant galaxy, you just go do what you want kind of game.
Probably get your jetpack, but aside from that, it's I think my feeling, and we'll see how this bears out when it's actually released, is people who bounce directly off of other Bethesda games, I don't think are going to find something novel here or new in terms of that, the way they're making games. So if that style of game didn't get you, and it wasn't just the thematic setting of the games, I don't think you're going to get too different here. But if you're on the fence, watch some videos, check some stuff out. This could be something for you, or maybe not. Like,
maybe watch one of our videos. Who can say?
Yeah, check it out. All right, we're going to take a break. There are other games. Are other games, yes.
What?
And we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about those other games. Stick around. This week's show is brought to you by Factor. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit. Brad Shoemaker, Alex Navarro.
Yes, Vinny.
I love food.
Yeah, you do.
I have a stomach. I too.
I enjoy eating. Factor delivered me a giant box of food that was delicious. And smoothies.
Were they also delicious?
They were pretty good.
All right.
I've gone through a couple of these meals already. I'm sure this is what Factor would love to hear, so I'm just going to say it because I feel like this is what happened. They were quick to set up. I took them out of the fridge, got them. I did them in the toaster oven, and in about 7 or 8 minutes, they were ready to go, and they were delicious. You can level up with Factor's Gourmet Plus options, prepared to perfection by chefs and ready to eat in record time. Treat yourself to upscale meals with premium ingredients like broccolini, leeks, truffle butter, and asparagus. Ooh, so fancy. Mm-hmm. They also have calorie-conscious options. You can try delicious dietitian-approved Calorie Smart meals with around or fewer than 550 calories per serving. And with Factor, you can rest assured you're making a sustainable choice. They offset 100% of their delivery emissions. They source 100% renewable electricity for their production sites and offices, and feature sustainably sourced seafood in their meals. You can head to factormeals.com/Nextlander50 and use code Nextlander50 to get 50% off. That's code Nextlander50 at factormeals.com/Nextlander50 to get 50% off. They have an exclamation point and I'm exclaiming it.
It's like half.
That's like half. Thanks, Factor. All right, we are back. And it's time to talk about another game that came out, let's say on Friday. This came out on the 25th. Armored Core 6 Fires of the Rubicon. Now,
I think it's just Fires of Rubicon, but yes.
Fires of Rubicon.
There you go.
Alex, you've played a bunch of this, or some of this.
I played a chunk of this. I mean, I got a little past where we were when we did that stream the other day.
What are you thinking so far?
So, I kind of love it.
Great.
I kind of love it.
I love that you love it.
So again, I've never really played an Armored Core game before. At most, I have maybe assigned out an Armored Core review or two over the years to other people. But, you know, you can't live in proximity of Austin Walker without hearing a little bit about how great Armored Core is at some point in your life, despite what Dan Reichert might say. So I went into this very much with the attitude of, well, a lot of the From stuff recently has not been hitting super well for me. Elden Ring was maybe the closest I got to getting way into one of these games. And I'm not a big mech guy, but I'm becoming mech interested, mech curious.
Mech curious, got it.
So I was like, all right, I'm going to give this one a shot. And here's what I have found. Yes, this game is hard in the way that a FromSoft game tends to be. But boy howdy is that combat fast and furious, and does it feel good.
So what'd you think of that first helicopter fight? Did you slash him with your sword?
Yes.
Good for you. Did you
it
try
took me 3 tries total, and I was done.
Good. Yeah.
I saw some people going absolutely apeshit over that boss, and I was like, well, I unfortunately saw someone do the thing you have to do to actually beat it, so I knew what to do. But, I mean, look, I want to do that anyway, because guess what? Having a mecha with a giant energy sword is always awesome.
It's pretty awesome. I played I played a little bit of it, the opposite of a bunch of it, on that stream. I really dug what they were doing. I wanted to get more pieces and parts for that mech and start buying stuff. And again, I'm not an Armored Core person either. This game is you mentioned some of the other FromSoft stuff, and Brad, you brought this up kind of when we were talking about Armored Core as well. This is not like branching path Souls game where you got the hub world and you're going other places. This is mission based.
Good on them also. I have not played this, so that's kind of all I have to say here is good on them for making another Armored Core game and not just turning Armored Core into the thing they have gotten mega popular for.
Yeah, by all accounts, from everyone I've talked to about this game who knows Armored Core, there are certainly certain aspects of it that sound like they are informed by where From has been over the last decade, but they still made the game the way that Armored Core people knew these games to be and what they are into.
I can't wait to see if both of us continue down the Armored Core path or Armored Core 6 path to see what the differences we have spec'd our mech to be. Because I feel like that the customization seems to be a huge, if not the thing here.
I don't know if I have the head for getting really into the nitty-gritty of the spreadsheets of this game, but I think from the limited amount I've messed around with, it does feel like, yes, there is a gigantic wealth of options, and also if you just want to have gun and sword, that is a totally viable way to approach most things.
And some missiles, come on.
And some missiles, and a shield,
missiles.
maybe.
Yeah, and tank treads, if you want.
If you're into tank treads, I'm not going tank treads. I like having my legs, but here's the thing. Again, the mobility in this game feels fucking great.
It does control very well. It's fast. Sometimes for me, it was a little too fast. Like
there are moments, yes.
You're just blowing past a lot of enemies, but you sometimes need to be very fast because there are a lot of enemies and missiles and things that want to make you explode in the game. Yeah,
everything wants you to die.
Oh, everything.
Even your handler doesn't seem too invested in you not dying. So good old Walter.
I enjoy that it is like, hey, beat the objectives for this map and you're done. Take a breath. Like you're good.
That's your sortie. Get on back to base.
Right. Yes. And we'll clock in and we'll see what's going on there. Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon out now.
Like just some really killer mech design in this. I mean, even apart from just the customization, like it looks good. I don't know, man. Like it's grabbing me in a way that a whole lot of other stuff this year has so far not been.
I think we still have not answered the question of mech or mecha exactly yet, but perhaps more time with the game.
It's an unanswerable question.
No one can ever have the answer.
Unless they go out of their way and they say, get in your mecha. Or get in your mech.
Can you have multiple mechs? Do you have like a fleet of mechs, or do you just have a mech and you have to modify it as needed?
As far as I can tell, it's your mech. Maybe there's something down the road where you have the ability to assign other mechs to things, but up to this point, it has been entirely like, here's your mecha, add stuff, take stuff out, do whatever you need to do.
Can you at least do like presets or loadouts?
Maybe you can.
There is, I think, a loadout system in there.
I would hope so, because I think the missions are going to call for different things.
Yeah,
right?
the thing. Yeah,
that was my ultimate question. Is surely I assume different things will require different things.
I'm curious to go more into that as well. It's unfortunately also I'm probably going to wander in some limbo now that we're hitting the September-October release portion of the year that has now become just release all your games. Just get everything out there.
A lot of games.
Yeah. Another game that kind of came out there that I really, really loved and enjoyed and was not as surprised to find myself loving and enjoying was the Making of a Karateka, or Karateka, as I think Mr. Mechner says it.
Which Mr. Mechner?
Jordan.
There's a couple of Mr. Mechners in this.
Which one does he say?
I think he says Karateka.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I was a Karateka or Karateka. I think early I was Karateka, and then I switched over to Karateka. There's just a whole little. So this is, I think, officially now part of the Gold series of
Gold Master series.
Gold Master series, which is what it's Digital Eclipse, right? That is okay. That is putting these out in their kind of. If you're familiar with the Atari 50 stuff, it's very similar to that style of part documentary, part anthology collection, part just celebration of a thing or a game. And that's what this is for Karateka, and that's what I'm going to keep calling it.
It's killing me that I have not had time to sit down and look at this with all the Starfield.
It's very cool. It's very similar to Atari 50. You get a lot of videos.
The structure is the same, yeah.
Yeah, I see it's literally got the same like timeline flow interface, right?
Well, so the most novel thing I found so far about it, it's two things. One, Francis Mechner is a delight. He is a genuine delight, and a lot of the early stuff in the documentary is Jordan and Francis talking about, his dad's memory of like Jordan doing all this early work on this thing, and like kind of what his like what his early goings were before he decided to start making this game, and like the rotoscoping aspect and all that stuff. The other thing is that they include a wealth of prototypes of things that Mechner made, even in the lead up to making Karateka. Like there's his Asteroids clone that he made a bunch of versions of that never actually got sold. Death Bounce, which was the evolution of that. Like there's a bunch of different prototypes for all that stuff. And that to me is the real meat of this thing, and the thing that kind of maybe sets it slightly different, and not necessarily apart, but slightly different from the Atari thing, where it's like there were those prototypes, but a lot of that was just about celebrating the history and all the big games that came out of Atari. Whereas this is such a focused thing that is, I think, the exact right supplemental material to add. So you're not just including 5 versions of Karateka and a bunch of videos. Like that's it, even if those games aren't necessarily things you're going to want to play a bunch, it's just really cool to see the evolution of that stuff as you're going through it.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
You may have mentioned this. Aren't there also like multiple milestones that he submitted to Broderbund?
Yes,
over time.
There's like 3 different versions of that Asteroids clone, and there's at least 2 or 3 different versions of Death Bounce in there,
and Karateka.
Crazy.
Yeah,
that's wild.
And it's really, if you're not familiar with the game Karateka, and it's really like, Alex, you hit the nail on the head there. I think in terms of, it's more of the making of Jordan Mechner as a game designer.
Yes.
Because it's his whole career up until really, the era of Karateka. It goes touches a little bit on like where that goes from there in Prince of Persia, but kind of ends there. But it's really about him going to college, what his life was like, where he got started, his struggle with like trying to become a game designer and sell a game. And it's fascinating because he, like you said, he is trying to make money off of these bootleg clones of games, and he's clearly a very intelligent game designer and person trying to apply those skills to make money, make a career out of this. It's not hitting, but people recognize, like Broderbund recognizes his talent.
I mean, he's like 17, and like, they're like you're doing shit that a lot of other people aren't doing at 17, so we have to recognize that. Yeah, and then kind of the pieces fall into place through failure to make Karateka, like through these other things not working. I have 2 very small criticisms about this thing. One is that I understand why they do this, because they assume that if you are buying the Making of Karateka, you probably already know a little bit about the game and who Jordan Mechner is. But they really drop you into the interview stuff kind of in the middle of like him just having a conversation with his dad. Like there isn't a, who is Jordan Mechner? Where did he come from? Like they eschew that, which I kind of understand why they did it, but I wish it had a little bit more of that.
I think if I remember, Atari 50 was kind of the same way, right? Like the stories are not in any kind of chronological order, right? Like the video clips on the timelines are just sort of like the story about Computer Space, which was Atari's first game, was actually a story from decades after the game was made. You know what I mean? It's like things are not in a narrative order in that sense. Always.
There's a degree of order to it, but it does also feel like they're bopping around sometimes. And it's mostly in the upfront where it feels a little bit jarring, but once you're in it, it's fine.
I mean, I'm sure it's hard to categorize and decide where to put things like that when you're working with something this old.
It's fairly linear in his career, and there are, sorry, Alex, I don't mean to interrupt.
There's text in there that explains some of that stuff, but there is an interview.
I think they might have some stuff that talks about the impact of Karateka, because they have like other people that aren't Jordan and Jordan's dad talking, other interviews, but those feel almost. I was almost going to say the same thing about those. They don't flesh those out really.
That's going to be my other criticism, is that I don't think the external interviews stuff with other, like they have like Tom Hall and like John Tobias and a few other people, those are not as good as the Atari one. Yeah, well, I haven't seen the Gary one yet, but like the ones I've seen of like John Tobias talking about like the music and stuff, it feels like they are struggling to come up with enough stuff to say about one game versus an entire company's catalog. Like John Tobias is like, yeah, man, like the way they use music is really cool. Like that first theme, I'm sure if you played it for me, I would immediately recognize it. Like it feels like they are trying to pull a little too much out of what not a lot of good interview that they got from those other folks. The Jordan and his dad stuff is all great, and the people who work directly with Jordan have interesting things to say, but when they're just kind of pulling like luminaries in to talk about the impact and stuff, it feels like they're struggling a little more.
I agree. They have enough people also who have worked on the game to really talk intelligent, or like people who have worked around the game or ported the game or done other things that are deeply invested. I think some of the, like, what was the impact of this stuff is interesting, but yeah, other parts do feel like it's almost like us talking about our memory of the game.
Yeah.
Where, look, if people want to hear that, that's great. I have very fond memories of Karateka, but I think you probably want to hear about the person who had to port this to the Commodore 64 a lot more than you want to hear about what I have to say about it. But I love this package. I think it's fantastic. I'm a huge fan of the game. It's one of those games that I walked away with even a deeper respect for, having watched this stuff about its time and place, because I was a kid when this came out. And, you know, they go and they spend time on, and again, this is a perspective thing, so you got to take some of it with a grain of salt, of what it was breaking away from in terms of arcade games and what it was doing for story and things like that. So
I did really enjoy his dad being like, well, you know, the idea to put music in the game, I think, was actually kind of revolutionary, because all the games you played for me was just some weird clicks and pops. Like, there's never any music. And I was like, well, you should have music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's certainly saying nothing new, but that game is, like, kind of a unicorn in how ahead of its time it was. It feels like, you know, in so many ways. Like, it's just, like, crazy that one person and his dad came to all of those innovations at once.
And then I'll tell you what else is fascinating. This shows all of that. There's the history. There's playing the different versions of the different games. And then there's the Mike Micah remake of the game with the commentary on. Is kind of amazing, because he talks about just how challenging it is to bring up to a modern platform, where I think he says he built himself a bespoke platform that had restrictions on it, so that he could make a game that didn't have unlimited headroom and had some restrictions. But also, there's a partner where he talks about the AI, the way it was programmed in the original was so dependent on the system that having it run faster broke the AI, and he just couldn't take the actual code and had to rewrite it all from scratch. Couldn't unwind the code to make it work correctly. It's fascinating in terms of making games.
I will say the new version of Death Bounce is also actually pretty good.
Yeah, but yeah, my kids wanted to play a lot of that. It was I didn't like the earlier versions of Death Bounce, but the new one,
they're not so great. But the newer one actually feels like a real ass video game
with the train, going through the trains, and what a weird story.
Yeah.
It's fun. I hope they do more of these. These are
absolutely. That's such a fascinating era for games and computing, especially games, to think about. You know, it's almost like this heroic era of game development. Like, just coming off of reading that John Romero book, like Romero was in that same scene. Like, is that letter from him in this thing?
Oh yeah.
But Jordan also posted that on Twitter right after Romero's book came out. But like, reading that thing and just realizing how rapidly and with how few resources people were making entire whole ass video games back then, it's crazy to think about. You know, it's like all those id Software guys got together. All of them had each made multiple games themselves. You know, like so many, like most games were just like a single developer in the early 80s, you know, on Apple II and Commodore and stuff like that, you know, and like how fast people just cranked stuff out. It's like, granted, very simple games, of course, but like,
well, challenging problems to solve, though, like creative and challenging problems.
Yes, for sure.
And they, like, some of those correspondence stuff illustrate that, where Bird and I'm getting all the details mixed up, but they'll be like, hey, Jordan, you should just check out what Bill's doing with Choplifter. Like, look what's happening.
They sent him a copy of Choplifter after rejecting his other submissions, being like, hey, you should just kind of see what new people are doing. This is what the cutting edge looks like.
That's exactly how Romero talks about it in that book, you know, of just like, oh, I knew so-and-so. I knew Nasser Gabelli from game X and Y, you know, and like all the things he was doing with page flipping were like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it was just so many people doing things that have never been done on their own, with limited communication between them.
It's
stuff.
so And
Like-
you know, with the restrictions that were in place, which sound severe on the
totally.
computing.
Yeah, like there's talk in there about like I can't get into the technical details, but just like using really specific things in the computer to like set your timing against and stuff, and the video hardware, you know, just like having to use like every single trick you could think of to make things work because there's almost nothing there to work with.
There's a really funny part, or really interesting part of the Apple IIe one, because I played on the Commodore, where they can't play sound and animate anything on the screen at the same time because it uses the same whatever process.
Yes, it's exactly stuff like that.
And so like everybody has to pause, but when you play the game, it seems very intentional and thematic, where like people are getting into scene, and then the beat plays, and then they animate again, and it's like, I don't think I would have realized that if you didn't tell me, and that's such a great workaround for some of those things.
The one I really loved was his dad talking like, okay, so, you know, I wrote these themes, like it's a leitmotif for like the three main characters, and Jordan being like, that's great. So there's this one memory chip on the Apple II that makes a click sound, and you have, if you enter in a thing between 1 and 255, you get one of positive, like there are that many variances on what you can do with that click to make sound and music. Yeah. And so he was just playing, like he would play a different note, a different, you know, section of that for his dad, and be like, yeah, it's a little flat. That's you know, that's a little sharp for what we're looking for. And he's like, Dad, you understand. This is what we have to work with. You have to pare this down a little bit, okay?
Right, because he said he'd be like, this is what 245 sounds like. He'd be like, that's a little flat. And be like, here's what 246 sounds like. He's like, that's a little sharper. He'd be like, there's nothing in between, Dad.
There is nothing.
Like,
yeah.
That's it.
Pick your poison.
That stuff is really fun. And it's all in the making of Karateka.
And that book is called Doom Guy. Also, I'll say, I read it while I was out of town. Like, exact same stuff. If you're interested in that period of early game development on Apple IIs and stuff, like there's a ton of info in there along those exact same lines.
And also you can hear about Mike Micah talking about how his method of getting past the dropping gate in the original one, which
interesting. Yeah, like I'm glad I played that game on that stream a few weeks ago because I had never played it before, and now I've got some idea about how it works.
You could learn about the different ports on the Commodore and on DOS and all that stuff, and the ports that maybe aren't as glamorous. They're all some of them are not included as playable on there, but a lot of them are.
Mm-hmm. I found out. I'm sorry, we can move on. I found out on this trip. Excuse me. My dad's first office computer was a Commodore 64.
Great. It's a fantastic machine.
All these years I've talked about, I never had access to a Commodore 64 or any of those early computers, really. I had no fucking idea until a week ago.
Were you just not allowed to play it?
No, I didn't know he had it. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what a computer was. I mean, I was this was, I was like, I don't know, somewhere in the 6 to 8 range, probably. I just didn't know anything about computers at the time and didn't go there that often, but it's just like, it kills me to know I could have just gone to my dad's office. I mean, he just used it to type, memorandums on and stuff.
Use print shop, make some banners.
I could have gone in there at any time and touched a Commodore 64 anyway.
Man, it was a great scene. That is the making of Karateka. That is out now. Highly recommended if A, you like that Atari 50 stuff, or B, have any interest in the
Mechnerverse.
Yes. It's cool. Or, want to support more of these, because I really hope they make more of these.
Yes, they absolutely, please, somebody, not to make everything about id, this is just the first thing that comes to mind because Microsoft has so much money, but hey, Microsoft, go give them money to do this for Doom or something, big companies that are trying to win hearts and minds, to give them money to do this for some of your storied properties, please.
And before it's too late. Look, people are aging, they're getting older, we lose people in the industry all the time, so before it's too late, gotta get all that good stuff out there. Just very, very quickly here, I've been continuing with Baldur's Gate 3. I still love it.
Yep. I've been enjoying my time when we check back in with Doug and crew.
Yeah. I put it down to play Starfield. I keep wanting to say Star Citizen. Starfield. But I just can't wait to get back into it and play more of it. And I think the next time I play it probably will be starting another new game with my kids once the console version, the PS5 version is out. And see if I can play on the PC and they can split screen on the PS5 and see if we can all join together into one happy Baldur's Gate 3 family. The family that role plays together. Anything else you guys want to add game-wise? I know we've kind of been trying to get as much Starfield in there as we can recently.
Though, to be honest, all I really want to do is go back to Armored Core. So
that's great. Look, there are a lot of other games coming out. I kind of want to check out that Goodbye Volcano High. Did that come out?
That just came out.
Okay. Check out that. There's that new Trine coming out that I'm curious about. I think that Lies of P is in September as well. There's a bunch of stuff coming out.
Same day as MK1, I believe.
Oh my gosh. There's definitely stuff coming out here where I'm going to have a backlog of stuff in the very, very near future. So we'll have more to talk about. I'm sure there'll be more Starfield in the future here as well. Also, that Cyberpunk thing drops in September. The Phantom
very soon.
Yeah. All right. I know that was kind of a shorter little segment there, but we're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about the news, and then we're going to wrap this already kind of long podcast up. So stick around. We'll be right back. This week's show is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Alex Navarro, we've talked about ExpressVPN before.
Many times before. We have always said that if you got to go on the internet, wear protection.
That's right. I've used ExpressVPN for many, many years. I've used it when I'm on public Wi-Fi. I've used it when I've traveled a lot. One of the things you can do with ExpressVPN that they would like you to know about is that if you're traveling, let's just say, for example, if you're traveling and you are a fan of some streaming services and you're in a country that doesn't provide you with the show you want to watch, you can change your location with ExpressVPN to one that it does service. ExpressVPN lets you change your location so your streaming service will think you're coming from somewhere else, allowing you access to, let's say, other shows you might not have had access to. And I've used ExpressVPN, and their speeds are good. I did not see any slowdown as I've used it, again, for years and years and years. Pretty comparable to me not having the VPN on, which is pretty important to me. Also, ExpressVPN works on a bunch of your devices, phones, media consoles, smart TVs, and more. So you can watch what you want on the big screen or on the go. So if you want to get access to hundreds of shows, go to expressvpn.com/Nextlander right now, and you can get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN for free. That's expressvpn.com/Nextlander. expressvpn.com/Nextlander to learn more. Thanks, ExpressVPN. And we're back, and it is time for some news. Let's start off here with Sony's PlayStation Plus Essentials, and I forget all the naming of all the different tiers here. Essentials and Extra, and is there one more? Premium cost. They're raising the price relatively, not an insignificant amount here.
Yes, it's quite substantial. A fact you would definitely know if you read this PlayStation blog post entitled PlayStation Plus Monthly Games for September, Saints Row, Black Desert, and Generation Zero. Really burying the lead on your price increase here in this blog post.
So they are, their current prices are, in US dollars, $60 for Plus. That's the Essentials. That's the basic one. Extra is $100 and Premium is $120. They are moving the Essential from $60 to $80. This is again US dollars.
A 33% increase.
They're moving Extra. This is the 12-month subscription, by the way, not the monthly. The Extra from $100 to $135, and then the Premium from $120 to $160. That's again relative. I say relatively because Game Pass is still more expensive than that. If you go for the Ultimate, I think Game Pass Ultimate comes up to like $200 something a year. So again, relatively big jump there. My personal thing is I find Game Pass more of a value than I did the PlayStation Plus stuff.
I don't think anybody is. I cannot imagine even the staunchest Sony fan trying to argue that this is a better value than Game Pass.
So these are the 12-month prices. The 1 month is $10 a month for the essentials, $15 for extra, and $18 for premium. So clearly you're getting a better deal here. If you go in for the year, that's I'm gonna say for that essential one, that's a big hike, and
it is
maybe a lot
not
to
landing
ask.
well. Not landing well. From
Yeah.
what I'm seeing. Here's the other thing that it just occurred to me is different about the Xbox situation. And that's actually the most infuriating thing about this whole thing. Cloud saves are free on the Xbox.
Mhm.
Like, that's the thing to me. Like, yes, they both charge for multiplayer. You still have to pay for multiplayer on the Xbox. But these consoles don't exactly have a lot of other ways to back up save games these days.
Right.
And locking that, what I would describe as essential functionality behind a subscription fee that has now gone up quite significantly,
Yeah.
sucks. Like, that really sucks, because like Sony at least lets you still back up on the PS4 saves to USB, but you can't even do that anymore. Like,
I don't think I realized that they were free on the Xbox.
Yes.
Okay, because
Yes.
Nintendo also puts cloud saving behind whatever weird
They
algorithm
do,
they have.
They do, but like Nintendo Switch Online is $20 a year. It's harder to get mad about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a bummer. I mean, also, their reasoning is just basically boilerplate corporate stuff of it will enable us to continue bringing high quality games and value added benefits to your PlayStation Plus subscription service, where it's like, I like the PS Plus. I'm going to call it Essentials, but PS Plus when it has its rotation of games on Plus, it's been fun.
It's been a good service. Like, they've had quite a few good games on there over the years, but also the landscape for subscription services on consoles has changed a lot since they rolled Plus out. When was that? Was that the beginning of PS4? Anyway, like, I feel like something else needs to change here besides the price.
And I'll tell you, like, look, I am not just, I play a lot of my games. Maybe my preferred platform at this point is the PS5. Play a lot of games on there. I don't think I could tell you exactly what the difference is in the tiers once you get out of the, I think one does the streaming, right? Like one,
there's streaming and there's the kind of instant game library, Game Pass equivalent, but it's just not nearly as fully stocked.
Yeah. So this is all happening September 6th. So if you're already in a 12-month plan, you won't get upcharged, or you won't see that increase until you cycle into the next plan. But if you start one after September 6th or September 6th and after, you will see this new pricing. So I guess if you want to lock in for now, like if you're paying monthly and you're like, I want to lock in the older price, you can try and get in before September 6th.
Yeah. I don't even expect free cloud saves, but they should really offer like a cloud save only plan that is, I don't know, $20
Not this
a year. I would happily just pay $20 a year for that and nothing else at this point.
What? So
like they're like, you need, like, fucking come on, man. Like, you need to provide people a way to back up their save data. Like, games are too goddamn long. There are too many ways to sink dozens of hours into something and have nothing to show for it.
I'm not exactly sure what they're aiming for here. Like, obviously making more money or generating revenue from this, but
like that's it. Is like I was reading, like, Matt Piscatella and Daniel Ahmad, two analysts I follow on Twitter, were talking about it this morning, and they literally said this is just goosing flat revenue from other parts of the PlayStation business that have been stagnant, that have not grown.
I just mean in terms of, like, even the tiering of the PlayStation Plus subscription. Like, I'm kind of with you. Like, essentials at this point should just be the barest thing, maybe a $60 a year thing to get your cloud saves if you're still going to charge for that, and multiplayer stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kind of that level of thing, and then put all the game stuff behind other higher tiers at that point. Make that the middle tier where $80 a year. Again, it's a pretty relative big increase. You're talking
it actually makes Nintendo's efforts look extremely generous at this point, or extremely consumer friendly, right?
Yeah,
like to get the cloud saves, and granted, old games are old games, but there are a lot of old games on those Nintendo, Super Nintendo, N64 things now.
Yeah.
for $20.
And again, look, Microsoft stuff is more expensive. They just had a price increase too, which is probably more, if not equivalent to $20. I think they went $2 up on their Ultimate a month on their monthly fee for that. So, and I think they just got rid of their dollar, that weird dollar promotion thing too. So, for Game Pass, so they
don't want to give Starfield away.
Totally. So look, I'm not really comparing the pricing on that, but for me, I think the value on the Game Pass stuff has just been more noticeable than on the PlayStation side.
I think it's very hard to argue against that.
All right. That's the PlayStation price increase stuff. The Baldur's Gate news. There is, we talked about it before. Larian had gotten out there and then said, look, we want to bring this Xbox version to you as soon as we can. We want this to happen. We're having some trouble with the Series S and making split screen work. And since there is feature parity, I guess I don't know all the details here. I'm not a developer for the Xbox, but it sounds like you need to have feature parity across the S and X if you're going to release your games. Obviously not graphic fidelity, but feature parity. And they said, we're having trouble with the S and getting split screen to work due to the system.
Yeah.
Well, sounds like Microsoft said, just get that game on the S and you can lose the split screen.
They hit the level of popularity and prestige that starts getting you exceptions from the platform holder.
As far as I know, I don't know other games that have gotten exceptions for losing features, but
for this, I think this is the first time. I don't quote me on that, but like this actually seems fairly profound.
Yes,
in that it's the first situation I know of the S actually getting something substantially less than the X.
This immediately reminded me of breaking the download limit for games on Xbox Live. Remember that when it was like, it has to be 200 megs or something like that?
50. It started at 50.
Yeah, and it was like
it kept going up over time.
So this is kind of a big deal. Look, I am very happy that people who have an S will be able to play Baldur's Gate 3. I think that game is amazing. I wish they could get the split screen to work, but it sounds like they were having just too many technical problems, and that was holding up development across all of the Xbox console stuff, including the X. So that still doesn't have a date, but it sounds like it is on its way. Or
look, if I'm Microsoft, I'm not putting any fucking roadblocks up at this point to getting what is probably going to be, if not the game of the year, then a lot of people's game of the year on this platform as soon as humanly fucking possible.
And look, Larian's got it coming out on the PlayStation 5 as of the time of this recording in like a week. It's coming out September 6th. So it's going to be on PlayStation 5 for a lot longer than it's going to be like Xbox. Still, they're trying to get it in this year. So that is like no date on that. Also, Larian's gone out there and just basically said, look, the reason this can't happen is because the S can't support it. Like that's kind of a shot across the bow.
And you can't really fucking argue with that,
Right.
Well, anything could be made to support anything if you do the work, but that's a lot of fucking. They'd have.
But that's the thing is the time doesn't allow it.
That's what I mean. Like they could make it look terrible to get it to work, but like that would take a shitload of work.
And maybe Larian is like, I don't want it to look terrible.
Yeah,
I don't want it to look
yes, and results in compromises that are probably not desirable.
Yeah. So good for Microsoft. I think the reason this is such an important story is, does it kind of break that dam for people to be like, because there has been arguments about and conversations and thought pieces about what the S is doing to development on the X and, having to make it feature parity. Is this going to break it, or is this a one-time exception? I don't know. Games are getting more complicated. We'll have to see if they stick by that.
I have to imagine Microsoft has heard enough times about what a fucking lemon that thing is that from various developers that they have to at least be like considering the possibility that maybe they just have to make exceptions when there are applications for that.
It's possible. That thing is really only substantially different on the graphics chip and the storage. Like it's got the same CPU. It does have less memory, but the extra memory on the X is supposed to be for higher res textures and stuff like that. So like plenty of games should still continue to be fine.
Starfield, you said Starfield was running just fine for you, right?
Like Starfield is absolutely acceptable on an S, but like split screen has always been hard, because you're just having to render way more stuff than you are by yourself. So That does seem like kind of an edge case. It would be a bummer if they really started leaving S owners behind in a lot of more substantial cases than this.
I don't know if they don't want to screw those people over either. I realize that, but at a certain point, you do have to like keep your developers happy as well.
Yeah, that's fair. But they don't put out sales numbers anymore, so it's hard to know. But I've gotten the sense that the S might be the better selling console.
I would believe it.
And if you bought that with the premise that you weren't going to get an inferior or feature inferior version, that would be a real pull the rug out from some people. I don't think Microsoft would do it.
Probably, I don't think so. Like they were pretty explicit early on that like, hey, all the same games, like you're not going to miss anything. So like that would be really shitty if they backpedaled too much.
Yeah. That's all they got to do is bring Baldur's Gate to Game Pass. That's it. Give it there's a compromise. If you have Game Pass, did I tell you should get Game Pass also?
It's a free copy of Baldur's Gate 3 to every
that's right.
Xbox owner. There you go. Make it like the snail game on the Master System. It's just built into the console.
Built in. It's burned in on a chip there.
Mm-hmm.
More Baldur's Gate 3 news. So I am not in Act 3. I am not even in Act 3. I'm not in the epilogue. I have not beaten the game. Sounds like some people were unhappy with Act 3 and some of the resolution stuff in the epilogue for certain characters. There is a new patch or a patch coming soon from Larian for Baldur's Gate 3, which claims to address some of those things, beginning with Karlach, one of the companion characters, and some of the options she has in her epilogue to flesh out some of that story. Again, I can't speak to it too much. I'm not in that area, but they're basically saying we've heard feedback, we've listened to the fans. They're and they're going to try and go in and solve some of that stuff while tweaking what sounds like maybe more performance stuff in Act 3, which again I haven't really experienced. They say, what did they say? With technology that's been taking a bit longer to release than we expected, said Larian. So I'm not sure what tech they're putting into Act 3 or what magic they're doing in there, but it sounds like they're going to try and make the game better, which great.
I wonder.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No date on patch 2 yet. For this patch with all these things in it.
I wonder if moving that release date up a month was rougher on them in this game than people thought it was going to be. Perhaps than they thought it was going to be. I mean, like that can't have been easy in any context, or like making a game this complicated can't be easy in any context, but especially when you suddenly have a month less to work on it.
Mm-hmm.
So they've said, at least in terms of the cut content or stuff that some people have data mined the game to see stuff that was in there, they said no to that question of what people have posed that, hey, is this because it got moved up that you had to cut this stuff? They said no, it was more narrative stuff, didn't make sense, made it too long, this was intentionally cut. Who knows? Performance-wise in Act 3, I don't know.
I meant more bugs and performance, which it seems to have plenty of issues with both of those.
So they say, quote here, we've started expanding the epilogues and you'll see the first results of that in patch 2 with the addition of a new optional ending for Karlach. It's fiery, poignant, and gives her the ending she deserves, which is great. She's a great character. So yeah, the reason I kind of bring this up also is PlayStation 5 version coming out September 6th again, probably gonna hit before this patch comes out, but then my thing is like, do I just kind of wait for this to come out and before I get to Act 3 and before I beat the game? Maybe.
Yeah, I would.
Maybe, and maybe that's what I would recommend to people as well.
Yeah, it's not like there's a shortage of other stuff to play.
This was also a thing, Alex. Since we did our Withers thing on the, I don't know if you remember Withers from our play date with or play session, let's say, with Abby. They're adding a thing, I think we talked about this before, where sometimes co-op members would be in your game even after they left and there wasn't a way to get rid of them. They're adding Withers' Wardrobe of Wayward Friends, which, again, you will be able to thematically place unwanted party members in this thing that will get rid of them, I guess, which is always fun when they come up with a thematic way of handling a gameplay thing. Like, pretty much what Withers is in that game, which is, hey, I'm a thematic thing for gameplay.
Yeah.
So that is Baldur's Gate 3. They continue to work on Baldur's Gate 3. I continue to play Baldur's Gate 3. I continue to enjoy Baldur's Gate 3. we talked about Starfield for a while here, but did you know Imagine Dragons also who apparently really like Starfield?
We have our new Paul McCartney doing Destiny, I guess.
Which was the new Korn doing
No, nothing has touched that. Nothing can
what the heck was
defeat
the
Korn.
name?
Haze was the game.
At no point did Paul McCartney say gaming for me is a religion and Destiny is the shit. Therefore Korn wins.
Sure?
Yes.
Plastic
Plastic song, man.
Here's what Imagine Dragons says. Children of the Sky, a Starfield song, is out now everywhere. We've been playing Bethesda Studio games for most of our lives, so we're honored to have collaborated on this song. Listen to the song, watch the lyric video on our YouTube. Yeah, I listen to it and I watch it. I don't even have a thing against Imagine Dragons. I actually quite enjoy a lot of Imagine Dragons songs, having been exposed to a lot of them because my kids really like Imagine Dragons. I think this song is trash garbage.
Okay, there you go.
I think it's got a line in it. I showed my wife and I was like, can you guess who this is? And she's like, no. And she's like, wait, is this like Imagine Dragons? And she's like, what the fuck is going on here? I hope they got paid a lot of money because this is embarrassing.
They did.
Is what she said. And I was like, yeah. There's a line in there where I think she walked away where they said, breaking glass ceilings in the sky, I think was the...
What the fuck does that even mean? What are you talking about?
I wish I could bring up the
Am
exact
I girl
lyric.
bossing in space? What are we doing here?
I don't know. It's
So I do have a problem with Imagine Dragons, as I have expressed in previous things. That said, whatever the quality of this song may be, I think if you want an illustration of what my general problem with the vibe of Starfield is that it feels like the Imagine Dragons of sci-fi video games. It is this it has a lot of very pleasant things in it, but I have not found anything that actually engaged my mind beyond just the general pleasantness. And that is what Imagine Dragons music is to me.
Yeah.
It's the kind of generally pleasant enough thing you hear in a doctor's office or a fucking retail establishment, and you're like, that's music.
Or before you sit down for a press conference.
Literally, that's what it's been for like the last 12 years. Are you going to hear it in front of a press conference or not?
Yeah,
Right.
Sitting while people are filing in the music they're pumping in. Yes, you are. I like that. I like the song they did for Arcane, the League of Legends
Okay.
series. Okay, that song's not terrible. That's the extent of my opinion about them.
That line that, sorry, I don't want to get the line wrong. I always had doubted that I could ever be someone that mattered, that shattered all these glass ceilings up above. Starfield.
Nah.
I didn't like it.
I'm getting that.
No, I'm listening to it
Thunder,
right now.
though.
It is
Thunder, fun song.
I can live with it.
Yeah.
I don't like it, but I can live with it.
Radioactive. I'm okay. with
Nah,
Radioactive.
that one I
know
find really
these.
fucking annoying.
I don't know the songs. This is extremely generic.
It's pretty bad. Yeah. That is Imagine Dragons with their Starfield song, the official song for Starfield. I wonder, having played Starfield for some of it now, I wonder if this is in the credits. I don't know. I haven't hit the
They
credits.
don't play it at the outset, that's for sure.
I don't think I've heard this yet. I hope I hear it on a radio playing in a space station somewhere. That's what I want. All right. EA is still around and
What a way of putting that, yeah.
and making video games. One of those games that people are excited for is the next Dragon Age game, Dragon Age codename Dreadwolf or official name Dreadwolf?
No, that's the name. Dragon Age Dreadwolf is the name.
But according to this Video Games Chronicle story, which states according to Jeff Grubb, do not expect Dreadwolf anytime soon.
They did just lay 50 people off from BioWare last week.
God, I missed that.
Yeah, I missed
that
that
happened.
too.
It happened the day we recorded last week, but yes,
geez.
they let go a bunch of people, including some very senior writers that had been there for a very long time.
Yikes! They also divested of the Old Republic a while back.
Yeah.
Handed that off. And like, yikes! That's with both Dragon Age finishing production and a new Mass Effect coming. That doesn't inspire a lot of confidence.
No.
I'm not sure what's going on there. Grubb had said that, or thinks that, again, this is his speculation or rumor or based on what he has heard, maybe late next year, but also early 2025 for that. So that's a window.
I'm going to say it again. Everything about the current state of EA feels like they are just flailing.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm sure Madden does, right?
Well, no, that's the thing, is they can afford to flail to a certain degree because they have at least 2 games that make them in the neighborhood of $1 billion every year. But, like, everything else they're doing.
Yeah, like FIFA is huge, Madden, The Sims, like their
Right.
mobile stuff. But it seems like all of their stuff that generates revenue is like their tried and true, steady producers.
Yeah, but they just don't have anything outside that feels like it is, 1, well managed, and 2, coming out.
Does not sound like Immortals of Avium has done well at all.
No.
So in this Video Games Chronicle story, they state that some of the Mass Effect team also has been pulled into Dreadwolf, and according to EA, they say, relevant to the job cuts and layoffs, if you're wondering how all of this will impact development of Dragon Age Dreadwolf, let me be clear that our dedication to the game has never wavered. So I'm not sure what that actually means, what that's saying. Like, that could be yes. I'm sure they are very dedicated. Our commitment remains steadfast, and we all are working to make the game worthy of the Dragon Age name. We are confident that we'll have the time needed to ensure Dreadwolf reaches its full potential. Yeah. I
don't know what else to say other than
yeah.
I want that game to come out, and I want it to be good. I want
That's
BioWare
right.
to be well. I don't have great feelings about where EA things in general are headed.
I fell off the Dragon Age series, and so I really like the first ones. I fell off. I really want Mass Effect to be good. So, like, I also feel like this isn't a great sign for making these big, gigantic, sprawling games.
Currently, I feel like we should set the bar probably at we really want Mass Effects to come out.
I don't know if I want a
And-
bad Mass Effect.
Well,
to come
no,
out.
no,
Yeah.
I know, but I'm saying
I'd rather
saying-
it just be canned.
what I mean is we have to cross the hurdle of it actually making it to market before
Yeah.
we can weigh in on its quality.
That's fair.
And this is the first time I have actually wondered, like, maybe that's in doubt to some degree. I don't know.
I don't know. Like, that's because they also have ground to make. Like, Dragon Age left off on a very high note. Like, Mass Effect did not. They have ground to make up with the Mass Effect universe, whereas at Dragon Age left off with, you know, people wanting more Dragon Age, right? Like, this was people love that one. That last one was it 3? Was the last one?
3, yeah. Inquisition.
Inquisition.
So yeah, we'll see. Again, hope for the best for them. Some sad news here. I mean, that is pretty sad news. But even more sad news. The voice actress for Harley Quinn, the one Arlene Sorkin, who was the Harley
The original.
Quinn made for the animated series, Batman the animated series. Arlene Sorkin kind of setting the tone, the vibe, the voice for Harley Quinn, which has been picked up, poorly imitated, even on this very in various podcasts we have done. Has passed away.
Yes.
At the young age of, I believe, 67. I can double check that, but pretty young, and not very long after we lost the voice of Batman last year.
Last year, yeah. Or maybe it was the very beginning of this year. I don't remember exactly, but it was pretty
Kevin
recently.
Conroy.
Yeah.
Passed away not too long ago. So yeah, bummer, huge bummer.
Maybe one of the all-time, this character was just supposed to be in this episode and then suddenly became this cultural legacy characters, at least certainly in my lifetime. Like, Harley Quinn was supposed to be a one-off henchman. She was not supposed to be an ongoing personality on that show. And she was fucking great. And that character, I think, is still one of the most memorable characters on a show that had almost nothing but memorable characters.
And again, just kind of want to give a shout out to the work done and the talent there.
Yeah.
Marlene Sorkin in establishing that character too, because that character has gone on to be an earner, let's say, and a huge part of the Batman universe. Like the Harley Quinn animated series with 2 movies at least is, I feel like you cannot make a Batman thing without Harley Quinn in it now, which is kind of amazing.
Well, you can, but it's hard to do a Joker thing without Harley Quinn around.
I feel like even DC Universe, Harley Quinn is such a popular character now that Harley Quinn makes her way into kind of.
Well, that animated series is extremely well received. The one that is just the Harley Quinn show, like, is generally very well liked.
So yeah, shout out there for Arlene Sorkin, passed away 67.
Yeah. I'll say it again. I said this when Conroy passed away. If you have not seen Batman the Animated Series or just been looking for an excuse to revisit, I promise you it fucking holds up.
And that is going to do it for the news. And then we're going to start wrapping this podcast up. We have an email address, podcast@nextlander.com. That's podcast@nextlander.com. Send your emails in. We're going to scoop them up. We're going to get to them, but we're not going to do that this show.
No. We've done a lot today.
In a future episode. And so podcast@nextlander.com is where you can send those emails. We also have a new chapter in the Watchcast coming up. We are going to be, we finished up Lane, Serial Experiments Lane. We are doing one more, or not one more. Our next thing is going to be another anime movie. Alex, it is going to be
Porco Rosso, by the narrowest of narrowest margins, voted on by our Mission Control and Mysterious Benefactor patrons.
Look, I still want to see Paprika at some point.
We're gonna do some Satoshi Kon stuff at some point, for sure.
So join us for that, and then after that, we're going to take a week break, and then after that, we're going to come back with some more Hong Kong films.
Yes.
And then after that, we're going to just kind of be watching, see what's going on with the strike.
We're going to do some horror stuff in October. That's all I will commit to at this time, but it will. Yeah. Let's just say if the strike is still going, we will be looking overseas for our picks.
That's right. So tune into that. You can check that stuff out along with a bunch of other things like the Ramblecast, Never Been a Better Podcast, over at patreon.com/Nextlander, where you can go and find some goodies there, find a tier that works right for you. Our support comes from patreon.com/Nextlander. So if you like what you listen to and what you hear and what you see and want to keep it going, that's where you can go to support us, and we thank everybody who's been there. There is one tier there, though, that gets their names read on this here podcast, and I'm going to read those names right now, starting with Ryan Waterman, RRE, John Richardson, Vornak, Kelly F., Brian Lucier, Skywarp, John Hubbard, Sean Miller, Evan Cook, Mark Wilhelm, Jerry Lee, Deidre is off to the beach, Gary Pejke, Robert Fisher, John McInnes, Bunny Fiend, Peter Reardon, Thomas Lynn, Jad Rita, Statics, Andrew Jackson, Mega Crane, Razgriz 2, Brian Murphy, Randy Duax, Andrew Tiebkin, Alex Wu, It's Me JP, Matt Clements Jr., Edward Chick, Andrew Slosky, Steve Lynn, Matthew Herrig, David Campos, and Tyler Treese. Those are our mysterious benefactors for this week. Thank you very much, and thanks for everyone who's gone over to patreon.com/Nextlander. Support us there, supported us on Twitch, have supported us on YouTube, listening to the podcast. Love it. Can't do it without you. Love you all.
Well, okay, maybe not all of you. You in the back. I don't like you so much, but the rest of you, you're cool.
And thanks to everybody for coming by and joining us for our live patron Q&A that we just had. That was a fun one. A lot of great questions. I really enjoyed that one. Got a chance to talk again with the audience over on the Discord. A lot of good times.
You can do that too.
Oh,
you want to join our community? Want to sign up for Patreon? You can be a part of that.
I might be a little biased, but it is the best community for video games on the internet.
Who would argue against that, honestly?
Nobody. It is the best. Maybe one of the best for board games and woodworking too, but look, just saying, I have a bias there. That's going to do it for this week's show. I think we've covered everything that's going on. Thanks for your patience with this delayed podcast and the embargoes. Hope your Thursday, now I could say it and it'll apply to everybody. I hope your Thursday went well. If you're listening to this in the future, I guess it doesn't make sense, but and again, we will be off the second week in September, so no live streaming that week. Keep an eye on the schedule. Some stuff might be moving around as we prepare for that week off, shift some things around. We're off Labor Day as well in the States. That's next Monday at the time of this recording, so no live stream on Monday as well. Brad Shoemaker, we did it. We played Starfield and we talked about it.
That's right.
Hell yeah.
I don't know why that feels like an occasion, but it felt like it felt like not only just because Starfield's coming out, I feel like Starfield's also this tipping point for like, okay, now all the games are just spilling out.
Whoops, we knocked the bucket over. Here come the video games.
Yeah, so here they come. Buckle up. And boy, I can't wait to keep going in Baldur's Gate and play some more of that. Alex Navarro, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll be back next week with more of these video games. Even.
There's more.
There's even more.
Somehow there's more.
Check it out next week. Thanks, everybody. See ya.